Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Hopefully, we have a number of attendees starting to join us now. We're going to have the wonderful Neil Evans, Industry Manager at Lantra, deliver his speech twice because it was so good the first time. We think you need to hear it the second time round. So hopefully now everybody can hear. Hopefully everybody can now see Neil if I put him on the screen. And enjoy. And we've got a variety of different presenters this afternoon. Everybody will be speaking for about 10 minutes, a wee 5-minute Q&A afterwards. There is our social media links if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about the careers afterwards. But for now, I will hand you over to the wonderful Neil.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are you able to do presentation again? That'd be brilliant. Thank you. So apologies for people who've maybe heard the start of this anyway already. I'm Neil Evans and I'm Lantra's Industry Partnership Manager here in Scotland, and we've got a great lineup of speakers this afternoon representing industries that Lantra supports in the land-based and aquaculture sectors. And I was just going to give a quick overview of the work of Lantra in Scotland as a starting point. So if you can go on to the next slide, please, that'd be great. Okay, so from forestry to food production, the UK and Ireland's land-based industries are home to hundreds of different jobs and careers, and Lantra has been helping to develop the workforce in these for over 40 years. We work closely with industry bodies, employers, governments and educators to provide quality training, career guidance and partnership opportunities, giving employers and learners the skills they need to work safely and productively while getting ready to meet the challenges of the future. As a registered charity, we put the needs of our learners and employers before profits. We provide expert local guidance backed by years of industry experience, and we also run an industry champions programme with finalists from our annual awards ceremony, the Albers. And you'll hear from some of our industry champions this afternoon. So next slide, please. Okay, a common question we get asked is, what is land-based? And whilst there are a number of different definitions, I've just listed here the range of industries that we represent at Lantra at this point. So you'll notice that not all of these are based on the land, and we perhaps should really be land and water based, although we don't do anything with sea fish. One of the recommendations of the recent Commission for the Review of Land-Based Learning was around our pitch and reframing the land-based sector to be one that's known as nature-based, not least as land-based is insufficient for what we cover as it ignores aquaculture, but also because the nature-based was the only term that really encompassed what we do and where we are. Similarly, when people talk about rural skills, these can include everything you need in the rural environment, not just land-based skills. So things like IT, childcare and health would be included there. So you could be an urban forester, yet you can't be a farmer and not in and for nature. The same applies for other industries operating in and helping to restore the natural environment. And we find this is also a much better sales pitch to young people who might want to be helping restore and work in our natural environment. So next slide, please. So another question we get asked regularly is, what does Lantra stand for? And the simple answer is it doesn't. So despite the capitals, it's not an acronym. It is just our name of the organisation. And in Scotland, we do more than accrediting the short courses and training providers that Lantra is perhaps best known for. The three other objectives that are noted on this slide are funded through a work plan that we submit to Scottish Government annually and the work areas we undertake as a charity on their behalf. They can be fulfilled, further simplified, into it's great here for promoting possibilities, opportunities, achievements and success. Be great here, supporting the development of a skilled and diverse workforce. And let's make it even greater here, ensuring policy and practice meet the needs of the sector. And today I'm just going to focus on It's Great Here and Be Great Here. So next slide, please. So It's Great Here is about raising awareness of the exciting and diverse range of careers the land-based sector has to offer. And a selection of our activities under this title include our favourite event, the Albers. These are the awards for land-based and aquaculture skills, which have been running for over 20 years and are a great celebration of the best learners and initiatives from the sector. We deliver a range of STEM activities through our forestry and aquaculture STEM ambassador schemes, designed to help more people working in aquaculture and forestry to become STEM ambassadors and work with schools and communities to show how important STEM subjects are to our industries. In partnership with CERC and STEM Learning, we've established toolkits to help new ambassadors deliver activities. These were done because it's sometimes literally too hard to know where to start with these things. We've also contributed to I'm a Scientist, Get Me Out of Here, supporting a plant zone. This is a student-led STEM enrichment activity that connects school students with scientists through energetic, real-time text-based chats. You have to be able to type fast to keep up with the questions. And these are incredibly engaging for pupils and scientists alike. And so much so that we found we're helping to create a marine zone in the future with with our friends in aquaculture. And final point on here is that we also work closely with DYW and other career influencers across the country. So next slide, please. So we launched our new Lantra website earlier this year, and it has a great set of career resources available on it. It gives users a full range of academic, work-based and short course practical training opportunities that can support skills development towards specific job roles, helping people effectively to be great here. These pages have already received fantastic praise from industry and individuals alike, and I'd highly recommend that you give them a visit. We've also created careers posters linked to school subjects on behalf of the Horticulture Skills Group, which is just one of our industry skills groups. We also have a Forestry Skills Group, Skills for Farming Group, a Deer Best Practice Group, and many more. Supporting these groups helps us maintain a really clear picture of the skills challenges the industries are facing and what the solutions might look like. So next slide, please. Also, under Be Great Here, we've worked this year with an organisation called Daydream Believers, who are a charity that create alternative curriculum for pupils and teachers. And these allow pupils to shape their own learning around what's important to them. Forestopia is a project where pupils design a theme park based on the ecosystem of a forest, which we found to be a much more positive way of getting people into a forest rather than a traditional come and look at the trees because we need more people to work in forestry. So it has a bit more impact on them. Primary and secondary school pupils have presented their work at a Forestopia showcase at Dynamic Earth, highlighting the impact of the project on their learning and development. This was very powerful and highlighted the importance of being able to follow a brief, collaborative working to solve problems, that things don't always go as planned, and when they don't, try again, as well as knowing that they would be rewarded for the effort they put in and more effort they put in, as opposed to just how much could be memorized for an exam. We've also agreed to support another project, Solar Punk Island, where pupils will be shipwrecked on a desert island and trying to create a sustainable community with the help of their art and science teachers. And there's a project called Seatopia in the pipeline as well, which will allow young people to explore how we could potentially live under the sea in the future. Take the next slide, please. So in summary, we work in a complicated sector. There's no easy answer, and most of the solutions that work for other sectors don't necessarily work for us. One of our big challenges is seasonality, and we find that climate change is likely to impact on our industries more than many others. And by definition, all of our work is not where people are. So rural areas, sparser populations, we have challenges at times getting the right people in the right places. Yet there's nothing more important than our land and the water that runs through it. We need to eat, we need to drink, and we need the resources to thrive. So we need the best of the best to manage them well. And we are also working to change the image that land-based is what you do if you can't do anything else. So last slide, please, Rebecca. At which point I will say thank you very much for listening. And if you do have any questions, the contact details are on the slide there. Please feel free to get in touch. And I hope that you enjoy and take some inspiration from our speakers today. And at this point, I will hand you back to Rebecca. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Neil. I think it's very interesting for everybody to always find out what's actually happening here at Lantra and the diversity of all the different roles that we all play here. So next I'm now going to be passing over to Fiona Steele. She's going to be talking to us a little bit today about the sector that she's involved in, and I think she's got a little presentation as well to tell you guys a little bit more.
Hi, nice to meet everybody. My name is Fiona Steele and I'm a lecturer in animal care at Borders College, and I will share my screen and hope that this works. Hopefully you can see my screen. Will Rebecca just say that's, yeah, that's good. Okay, right. So yeah, my name's Fiona Steele. I work at Borders College. Originally my job, it was as a veterinary surgeon, but I now work as a lecturer, no nights, no weekends. There we go. So just a little introduction to start off with to the animal care industry. So there's lots and lots of different opportunities now within the animal care sector. But whatever route you go down, really our prime consideration is animal welfare. It's incredibly important that whatever we do, we consider our welfare first. And this is an ever developing, ever growing, ever expanding area with lots of research being done at the moment as well. And there's been rapid growth and diversification of all the different opportunities. There's lots of different opportunities within animal care. So why would you choose to do animal care? So mostly people tend to say they've got a passion for animals. They really love animals, and it's always a good idea, isn't it, to turn your passion into the profession that you want to do. You know, it's always a good idea to have a job that really fills you with energy and enthusiasm. It tends to be quite fulfilling work. You know, you can make a really positive impact on the life of animals, you know, their animal welfare, and also the carers of the animals as well. There's lots of opportunities, so you can have a little look around and actually pick what theme actually interests you, with lots of opportunities for growth and development of those careers. Job security as well. People do prioritise their pets. In a recent survey that the BBC did, when they asked people, you know, what will you definitely not cut back on within the cost of living crisis, people's responses were they wouldn't cut back on things for their children and they wouldn't cut back on things for their pets. So people do prioritise pets. They're willing to pay for some of these services. You have that connection with nature, which is really good for your mental health as well. So it's, you know, it's good to have a job that's that. And also there are global opportunities. If you work with animals, you tend to develop excellent transferable skills, and some of these jobs as well are highly valued in other countries, and you may get the opportunity to go and work in different places. So what types of careers are we looking at? So everybody tends to think of things like veterinary medicine, nursing and their associated roles, but there's also things like welfare and rescue, grooming and styling, lots of that, boarding, sitting, walking, zoology and wildlife. Training and behaviour is becoming more important as more people who haven't had pets before are taking them on. Nutrition is really important. People are really interested in what they actually feed their pets. So there's a big sector opening up there as well. Laboratory animal care is a little bit more niche. Obviously farming and agriculture, which people are going to talk about later, and lots of associated other opportunities. So we'll just have a quick whiz through different things that you could be interested in. So veterinary medicine and nursing tends to be what everybody sort of thinks of first, but there's lots of other things, not just medicine associated. So obviously vets are highly trained. They've been to university for a long time. It's traditionally incredibly difficult to get into as well. However, there are new vet schools opening up. We have a new vet school opening in Scotland, up in Aberdeen, and they are working on new pathways and recruiting via different ways to get into these newer vet schools as well. So there's maybe more opportunities opening up in that direction. Veterinary nurses, it's a similar but very different career to being a vet. They work alongside, they often, nurses now provide their own clinics. They do things like puppy parties, weight clinics, post operation appointments. They've got lots of things that they do, often in charge of monitoring animals whilst they're in surgery under anaesthesia, and really ensuring that those animals get the proper care that they deserve. And we also now have a lot of paraprofessionals surrounding our medicine veterinary professionals. So things like physios, massage therapists, acupuncturists, hydrotherapists. There's lots of things that work alongside the veterinary medicine profession. Unfortunately, we do still have a requirement for animal welfare and rescue. So rescue centres are obviously dedicated to safeguarding the well-being of animals and rights. So they don't only just rescue when animals are requiring it and rehabilitating, but they're also strong advocates for animal welfare, raising animal rights within society, influencing what laws are passed as well. So they play a really vital role in ensuring that animals deserve and get the respect that they deserve within our society, and helping to raise welfare and change our thoughts about welfare as well. And things like a hutch is not enough for a rabbit, and actually raising educational awareness so that we keep our animals in a better state. And there's lots of opportunities there, both national with things like the SSPCA, and also smaller local charities as well that work within our communities. Grooming and styling, big growing industry with the grooming services, especially with the rise of the doodle. We have lots of curly coated animals which may not shed, but they do require quite a lot of coat maintenance, and just the fact that people have maybe got pets, they haven't quite realised the work involved. Different coat types require sometimes quite specialised skills, so there is a need for groomers and stylists, and also they just make your dog smell nicer, don't they? But we need to make sure that you're properly trained if you're going to be a dog groomer. So there's certification is required, and people now are looking to make sure that their groomers have certificates and the education required. And there's great entrepreneurial opportunities. If you're good at what you do, you can have a really great business with grooming. And likewise, boarding, sitting and walking. The massive increase in pet ownership during the pandemic, now people have maybe gone back to a more office-based type of work, then there's a huge opportunity now for people to walk dogs, let dogs out, pet sitting to allow people to go on holiday as well. But again, the public who expect qualifications, you need to make sure that you're properly trained in order to do this and have the required certificates. And again, great business opportunities out there exist for this type of service. Zoology and wildlife conservation, it's a little bit more niche, can be quite difficult to get into, but there are opportunities to study wild animals, research opportunities out there, great for opportunities to travel abroad and use those skills that you've learned in this country to work with conservation organisations. So that there is work out there, lots of competition for it though. Training and behaviour, again, with our increase in pet ownership, especially perhaps with people who don't necessarily have a big experience in keeping dogs or cats for that matter as well, then there's a market for training and behaviour. So, you know, things like obedience, but could also be special tasks, and lots of fun can be had out there training our dogs to do certain things like man trailing or agility or hoopers or flyball, where you can really develop a bond and enjoy your dog. But again, it's really important that the people that are training have the certifications and the knowledge. So good to make sure that your trainer has qualifications and that you're trained to deliver these services. As I said before, there's quite a big interest in what our pets eat. So not only what we put into our bodies, but also what our animals are eating. So it's really important that animals get correct and proper nutrition, and that includes a balanced diet, which can be provided by buying reputable, high quality produced food. But some people like to produce their own diets at home. That can be really tricky. And doing that and making sure that the diet you produce is balanced requires the help of a nutritionist. So nutritionists can work in industry to make sure that the diets that are produced are complete and suitable for the animals that they are being developed for, but also to help people if they're trying to develop diets at home, to make sure again that their animals are getting the correct food that they require to thrive and survive. And again, you know, you're going to need qualifications and certification to be able to do that. Laboratory animal care, quite niche, some ethical considerations there. We need to make sure that the animals are in these situations are being cared for correctly, but there are roles out there in research facilities and roles out there often investigating actually welfare needs and how we keep animals the best way possible. Farming and agriculture, somebody's going to cover later, but again, it's really important that our livestock is managed correctly, that animal husbandry is top notch, and that we're sustainable this day and age. So there's lots of different educational and career pathways for these types of jobs. So there's different paths for different careers. You can come to college. We do full-time courses and short courses to give necessary skills. Obviously, if you want to be a vet, then you need a rigorous university degree, but there are now, as I say, alternative pathways to university. And if you don't have the required grades from school for direct access, then coming to college to do our courses can lead you into university. Again, you know, whatever service you are delivering is probably going to require a certificate or a license. The general public is demanding that professionals do have these qualifications, so it's important that you get qualified properly, and some services are also going to require certification from your local authority as well. And it's also important that throughout our career we continually keep up to date. You know, things do not stay stable. Welfare guides change, best practices change, so we need to make sure that throughout our professional career that we are keeping up to date, continuing to educate ourselves, attending courses to make sure that we're right on the surface of where we should be. This slide just shows one of the learner pathways that we have at the moment within Borders College, connecting with SRUC. So we have a pathways project where we can direct students through our different pathways to different career areas. So these are just some of the courses that we deliver in animal care at the moment at Borders College, and how you can transfer those through. And if you come with us and do HNC, HND, then you can carry on with SRUC to convert that into a degree course. And that's one of the pathways to university, which is a little bit different. What subjects should you be thinking of taking if you want a career in animal care? Well, science and maths are always going to be helpful, but also your soft skills are really important. So things with customer service, animals do tend to come with an owner. So sometimes we do hear, well, I want to work with animals because I don't like people. Well, animals do usually have an owner, so being able to manage their owners is also really important. At college, we offer a skills pathway to come to college and study animal care part-time as part of your choices. So in 4th year, 5th year and 6th year, actually, you can come and do an animal care course with us if that interests you. So in Scotland, there is a growing demand for skilled professionals. So lots of people have acquired new pets during lockdown, lots of different services required. There are various regional variations depending on whether you live near sort of Edinburgh and Glasgow, but lots and lots of opportunities. And this is just a story of one of our students who's had incredible success. So Rachel came and did her HNC HND with us at Borders College, and then has gone on to set up her own business with doggy daycare and photography. And she's got a really thriving business that she's got running there, and she gets to walk dogs in, well, hopefully the lovely sunshiny weather that's shown there, maybe not so great in the last couple of weeks where it's been very wet, but great job that Rachel has there. So yeah, just thank you very much for listening to my talk. I hope you follow your passion into animal care, and that's my email address. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for that. We have just opened up our Q&A, so if anybody has any questions at all, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A section, and then we can ask while we have Fiona here. I'll just give that a little minute, see if anybody wants to pop a wee question in.
A little shy.
It's been a long school day, no doubt. So Fiona, how was it exactly? So you said obviously there's so many different pathways into animal care. How was it exactly that you said you got into animal care?
So I qualified as a vet from Glasgow University in 1995, which feels like a long time ago now, and worked mainly actually at equine practice. I then moved back to the Borders, which is where my husband was from originally, and was just doing a little bit of my own business, really, just a little bit of locuming work and a bit of acupuncture actually. And at the time, the college was just setting up, actually keeping animals in college, and they asked if I would come and lead that project, and yeah, that's slightly accidental, and I'm still here. So yeah, that's how I got into the animal care side of it. And as I say, no nights or weekends, which is a bit of a plus point.
Fantastic. Well, I think everybody seems to be a little bit shy this afternoon, and since we are slightly behind on time, I think what we will do is if we get any questions come through, Fiona, we will message them over to you. Obviously, everybody has got your email address as well, and we can send that out afterwards, and we will direct them to you for your questions. But thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's very much appreciated and was very interesting to learn more about the career pathways into animal care. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we'll be listening to Scott Mason. He is one of our industry champions. He's fantastic. He does a lot of work for Lantra. We love Scott. He's very, very knowledgeable. He's going to be talking to us today a little bit about the fisheries management side of things, as well as the environmental conservation side of things as well. So I will now hand you over to Scott.
Thanks, Rebecca. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Scott Mason, and I'm one of the land services officers at Stirling Council. I'll take you on a bit of a journey today. I don't have a presentation or anything, so it'll be off the cuff, as people who know me know that I usually do. And we'll go on a journey from when I left school to where I am today. And for anyone who's interested in the sectors of sort of fisheries management or environmental conservation, of how they can get to where I am. So I left school when I was 17, a long time ago now. I've just turned 30, and I had an aspiration and a dream of being a farrier. For anyone who's sort of in the equine industry will know what that is. But unfortunately, SRUC Oakridge decided just as I was leaving school that they didn't want to do the course anymore. So that kind of flung that out of the water. I was then decided that I wanted to be a joiner, and I left school and went on to Forth Valley College and done a year's pre-apprenticeship scheme as a joiner. The building trade then fell away, and I couldn't get an apprenticeship in that. I was then out of work for about sort of 8 to 10 months, and I then secured a sort of Christmas temp job in retail, which I absolutely hated, and looking back now, I don't know how I stuck it for the 12 months that I did. I then seen a job advertised on My Job Scotland for Stirling Council for an apprentice countryside ranger. And, you know, my background is I've always been interested in outdoors, involved with racehorses, always done a lot of fishing. So I thought, wait a minute, this sounds a bit interesting. So I've done some research and made some inquiries. and realised that this was right up my street. So I applied for the job and I started with Stirling Council Ranger Service as the very first apprentice in January 2012. It was a 2-year course, and through that I actually done my SVQ, part of it with Mr. Evans, who's on the call today, so it's always nice to see him again. And we worked through that, and within sort of a year I'd completed what I was supposed to do in the academic side of things, and things were progressing well. And Stirling Council at that time had an active salmon fishery that they managed for salmon fishing purposes and sort of recreation. So the fishery manager, who was my predecessor now, decided it was time for him to retire, and this was in 2014. And I'd been in the council sort of 2 years, still under an apprenticeship, and the opportunity came up for me to apply for the fishery manager's position. And this was a big step, you know, from an apprentice to being a fishery manager, and it revolved around sort of managing staff, managing budgets, managing permit holders, and sort of managing quite a lot of land. So I took that on in June 2014, and I was successful in securing that post. I then have been there ever since, and last year, June 2022, the council decided it was going to reintroduce a ranger service, and they approached me and asked if I would sort of manage them because of the background of where I'd come from, being an apprentice within the service previously. They thought I was sort of the best fit in the council to take that on. So my roles got sort of joined together, fisheries manager and sort of ranger service manager put together, and I was then in charge of a service where I started as an apprentice in 2012. So I kind of went full circle right the way around, and now my role has developed further into the council, and I kind of form part of the land services management team, where I look after 23 open space and countryside sites, the ranger service, the fishery service, what is left of it. I also look after some of our arbor team, and I help out with managing our horticulture and street cleansing teams as well. So quite a wide and varied post that I have now, but starting back when I think about when I wanted to leave school and I wanted to be a farrier, then a joiner, to now being part of sort of the land services management team at Stirling Council. You know, I'm a real advocate for no wrong path, and when people leave school and they have a vision and things don't work out, they can get a bit dejected. But, you know, it's about keeping your head up and carrying on of, you know, that things will work out, as they have for me. You know, looking back and thinking I wanted to be a farrier, then a joiner, then I worked in retail, to now sort of managing quite a big part of Stirling Council's environmental portfolio. If people want to come into this industry, and it's a fantastic industry to work in, I don't get out of the office very much anymore, unfortunately, but my staff on the ground are outside. You know, the outside is their office, and for them, it's a great way of life. It's not just a job, it's a passion, it's a way of life, and it's a job that to do it, you've got to enjoy it. It's not something you can just sort of pick up and run with. You've got to be interested, and I'm lucky enough that the staff that I manage really are. So touching on the fisheries stuff, the fisheries management sector to sort of Scottish economy is worth about £60 million a year, and that's quite big. It's a huge part of recreation, and with that, you know, fisheries management and sort of the recreation side of it comes hand in hand with hotels, restaurants, pubs, and sort of that sort of business. So that's where the £60 million worth of income to the Scottish economy comes from. If you wanted to work in this industry, you could be a gillie. A gillie is someone who will work on the river or on a loch, and their day-to-day job will be looking after clients. The clients will come to them with the aim of catching a fish, and the gillie will look after all their needs for the duration that they are there with them. You also could work in the fisheries sort of legislation and enforcement side of things, and you could be a bailiff, and that is you're there to protect and enhance the fish, whether that's in a reservoir or a loch, or whether that is salmon and sea trout within a river environment. And there's a whole section of Scottish law which protects salmon and sea trout, and as a bailiff or a fisheries enforcement officer, you would work to protect them using that legislation. Or you could be in a role that's like mine and be a fishery manager, and where my role, I was responsible for managing the bailiffs on the ground, looking after the budgets, making sure that I marketed the fishery properly and we could sell permits and then receive income. And that was my role, a bit like an estate factor. You could also be a biologist, and that is where, you know, it's a more academic role, where you've been to university and you've got a degree in biology or ecology, and you work within that sort of freshwater environment to look at how you can enhance and protect the sort of natural environment of the freshwater. If you wanted to work in the sort of environmental conservation side of things, you could be an ecologist, you could be a ranger, or you could work in the private sector as a consultant. You know, if you wanted to be an ecologist, it's there about the role. It's a bit like a biologist. It's an academic role, and it's about managing the relationships between the animals, the plants, and the people and the environments that they live in, and providing advice to people like myself when we want to do projects and work around how we protect that environment that creature or special part of wildlife lives in. And if you wanted to be a ranger, it's quite a wide and varied role. My ranger service, I have 2 members of staff and a current apprentice, and they've all come from different backgrounds. My apprentice come from a background where he'd done a lot of volunteering, and he known from a young age that he wanted to work in the sort of outdoor environments. One of my other rangers, one of my full-time rangers, she actually has a master's degree in ecology. She came through the academic route and is a valuable part of my team. And my other full-time ranger, she come from a totally different sector completely and had a bit of a career change, and now is a very valued member of Stirling Council Ranger Service. And you know, their role is about managing areas of land and parks and open spaces for people, wildlife and plant life, and making sure that they all sort of correlate together and can sort of work in tandem. You know, at Stirling Council, I think we have 23 countryside sites, 1 country park, so it's about getting that right. You know, there are a lot of visitors there, but there's also a lot of areas of sort of scientific special interest, so we need to make sure that these are protected, along with allowing access to the members of the public. And if you want to be a consultant, that's more like the academic role of an ecologist, where you could work for a private sector company and provide them advice on a consultancy basis on major projects, whether that's like a roads project or a building project that they are working on, and you could do that and you move from sort of job to job. There's no fixed, you're not in one place for a very long time. You know, the UK government has pledged big commitments to support biodiversity in the sort of natural environment by 2030, and the Scottish Government as well has pledged these commitments through the Edinburgh's Agreement. And that takes me on to, you know, if people wanted to work in these industries, there's always been a thought previously that these industries are quite in silo. And, you know, if you work in agriculture, you work in agriculture or fisheries management, environmental conservation or trees and timber. But actually, they all cross over quite nicely. And, you know, my staff on the ground, they use chainsaws regularly, they use tractors and machinery. So it's an industry, especially the fisheries management one, whereas you'll be using equipment, although you work on the river or you work on a reservoir or a loch, you use equipment and tractors and chainsaws quite frequently. So, you know, these industries are not in silo anymore, and it'd be quite easy if you were working in one and decided that you wanted to move to another one to do that. You know, the crossover is quite easy. I've just seen a question come in there. Can you start with an apprenticeship and use that to get credit towards an academic qualification. I think that the two of them, from my experience, the two of them are separate. And if you wanted to get an academic qualification, it's go to university or college and do that. My apprentices do an SVQ, usually I think it's level 2 and level 3. So that gives them a form of academic qualification that gives them a grounding if they wanted to go on and do more. You know, if they wanted to go on and do a HNC or a HND, or go back to uni and sort of do a master's. Another question coming, what skills do you need to get a job in fisheries management? The skills, you know, it's people based. So, you know, if you're a ghillie on the ground, you're working with a member of the public all day, every day, you're looking after their needs. If you're sort of enforcing fisheries legislation, you're working with people again. And me as a sort of fishery manager, I'm dealing with members of the public every day. So I think, you know, good communication skills is key. And, you know, being willing to learn and listen, especially as you come into sort of entry level posts. It's what I tell my apprentices is be a sponge and absorb all information that they're given. So it's quite a practical job. So, you know, if you've got any experience in sort of outdoor work, or there's quite a bit of maintenance involved as well, using streamers and building boardwalks and decking along the side of paths and along the side of the river. So if you've got sort of hands-on experience, whether you've done joinery or anything at school or any work in the garden, and I think, you know, having a knowledge of fishing does help, but it's not necessarily that important, because, as I said, the entry level post, be like a sponge, come in and learn, you know, we'll teach you everything you need to teach you. So I think that's the best bit of advice I can give anyone who wants to come into industry, is just be willing to learn. You know, these posts that we're speaking about, people are got to have an interest, and it's not something that people just decide one day and they wake up and say, oh, I want to be a ghillie or I want to be a bailiff, because you need to be interested and have a bit of passion about it. So I think that's the best advice I can give someone, is be interested and be like a sponge. I've not got much more else to say. If you want to open it up for questions, it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So I'll hand it back to Rebecca, and if anyone wants to ask anything, or Rebecca can share my email address, and anyone can give me a call or drop me an email, and I can answer any questions offline if you can't think of any today.
Thank you very, very much for that, Scott. It was really interesting, and the fact that you managed to cover 2 of the sectors there, and it was really, really interesting as well to hear about your kind of experience, and also that career pathway, the thing we keep talking about, the way that you get into all these different qualifications and whether you can transfer them, and, you know, as you say, just be that sponge, take in all the information, and, you know, just have that. You don't even necessarily need to have those initial skills, it's just having the passion and the willing to learn. If anybody's got any more questions, I'll leave the Q&A open for another wee minute there.
I think
we're starting to get back onto time there. Sorry, Scott, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I forgot to mention as well that one of the biggest things to get into these industries in both parts, environmental conservation and fisheries management, is volunteering. You know, I can't stress that enough, that if somebody is interested in becoming and working in sort of this environment, in this sector, get as much experience you can while you're sort of in the later years of school, or if you're at college, get as much volunteering as you can, go to your local ranger service and get some hours under your belt with them, or contact your sort of local fisheries trusts and get out with the biologists and get some hands-on practical experience. So.
And of course, contact Lantra, because we here can help you guys get your work experience and work placements as well, and find out who you could go to get those apprenticeships. So thank you very, very much for that, Scott. I think that's all the questions that we've had come in. So thank you very much for your time again. We will make sure that we share your email at the end for anybody that does have any follow-up questions. So thank you very much.
No bother.
Okay, so from this point now, I will be passing over to Diane Ross and to James Monroe from UHI. They are going to be speaking to us today about equine and the different equine sector and the career pathways into there. So I'm just going to hand this over to them there. If they're able to share their screen, I can post that live for everybody now.
Okay, I'll just do that just now. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Thank you very much, Diane.
Is that, can you all see that?
That's perfect, Diane. We can all see that. Thank you.
Oh, great. That's a relief. Thank you. So yes, just as you said, so I'm Diane Ross, and I'm James Monroe's here with me, and we work for UHI, which is University of the Highlands and Islands, Northwestern Hebrides. So I'm the curriculum leader for the equine courses, and James is our centre manager at a rural studies centre where all the equine provision takes place. So we're just going to go over some of the skills that we deliver, sort of the practical skills and the basic skills that we deliver, that help our young people find work in the equine industry. And also we're going to look at the different areas and careers that you can find within the equine industry, and relate those to the type of courses that you can do to train in that way. So we have a variety of courses that run from NPA level 4, which is in horse care, through sort of NC, HNC, through our degree and right up to postgraduate level, with some PDA awards in breeding and competition horse in there as well, which all relate to different areas of the equine industry, but we're going to chat about that as we go through our presentation. So, James.
Hi, so I'm James Monroe, and I'm, as Diane said, the sort of manager of the yard where we provide all the practical part of the horse care. So what we're going to do is look at basically some of the horse care aspects, because for 90% of the horsey jobs, and we're going to run through different things, everybody must have a basic knowledge of the looking after of horses, and that's from like whether you start in a riding school and you're just a little helper to start with, or eventually go to be the yard manager. It's the care and welfare of the horse and looking after the animal, working, being confident around the animals, and being able to recognise when they're not well, when they're fit and healthy, if they're too fit and healthy and can be cheeky, and dealing with everything from young foals right up to breaking horses and breeding horses, and then riding skills and whatever, the care of the horse to get them ready for riding, etc. Feeding them and nutrition for them, because obviously that's one of the most important things, that you feed them the right food and they get the nutrition to make them look well, keep their skins good, and about, you know, the difference between feeding a Highland pony and the difference feeding a thoroughbred that's ready for the racetrack. And everybody has to do the mucking out, I'm afraid. So no matter whether you're managing director of the biggest equine facility ever, on Christmas Day there is very hard to get staff in, and every one of us have to muck out. I muck out nearly every day. We have students come in and they do the mucking out, but I'm also there at the end of a fork. And tack and knowledge and care of the tack. It's tack as well as the horses. We'll go on to speak more about the horses, but horses now are valuable animals, and it is. I'll give you an example. As well as doing the college, I show horses and compete horses showing, and to various success. I've won Horse of the Year, so I've won the Highland Show Hunter Championship. I've won Small Hunters there 4 years in a row. So we've always got horses coming through. We went to Ireland with an owner 2 weeks ago and came home with 6 horses, having spent nearly 100,000. on these 6 horses. And to go on these horses, you're buying tack. Now, there's a picture of the tack room there. The saddle that's sort of on the left with the white number was nearly £2,000. And it's not just, you know, a saddle that can be thrown on the ground. That the knowledge of the cost of the tack, and that how important it is to keep it clean, keep it supple, keep it soft, and the fitting of it for the comfort and what suits the horse best. And the riding, now people think, oh, you know, I don't ride well enough to work with horses, or, you know, I'm a bit frightened of jumping, etc. Riding is part of the course that we offer. So most of the courses have a riding element in it. But you don't have to ride to do a horse job. In the equine industry, not everybody has to ride. Loads of yard managers don't ride. They manage the yard, they manage the riding school, they do the day-to-day running of it. So the riding is not something that you necessarily have to be able to do. There's lots of people that work in the equine industry who don't ride, but they do have the understanding of riding. And we think it's really important that the students we have watch students that ride, so that they have the understanding of the people that are riding and what would be expected. For example, the fitting of the tack. How, if it doesn't fit correctly, the result it could have on the way the horse is when it's ridden. So we're going to have a little look at the different, now these are just a snapshot of some of the careers in the equine industry. And everybody thinks there's the groom. The groom is somebody who comes in, mucks out, and brushes off the horses. Now, there's the groom who works in the riding school and may muck out the horses. They will tack them up, get them ready for lessons, make sure that they're brushed off and clean. Then there's grooms who work for all of the top riders in the country that go to the Olympics. Every Olympic rider will have 4 or 5 grooms. Now, and that's not necessarily in this country, but all over the world, there's competition riders. And for example, if you went to the Olympic Games, I would say that 50% of grooms, the competition grooms, come from Britain, because they usually have had a good grounding, a good training, and they're looking after that most valuable animal that rider has, and the responsibility of getting it ready to compete at the biggest stage it could compete on. And then there's various levels between the riding school to that level. People have private grooms. They may only have 4 or 5 horses at home, but they don't have the time to look after them. And some of these grooms will have riding opportunities that they exercise the horses when the people can't ride them. So a groom is not just sort of this lowly job. It's the most important, I think, one of the most important jobs within the yard is the people who look after the horses. Then you move on to the instructor and the coach. Now, we teach people to teach, and one of the most difficult things ever in the world to do is to teach teachers. And it's quite difficult. But with it, if you want to go into the instructing coach route, you have to understand people and the delivery and the different methods of teaching. Some people like to be almost stroked, and you have to encourage them and be very encouraging. Then there's other people that you teach who would rather say, if you thought it was bad, tell me it's bad and I will make it better. And there's various ways of telling that. And in the instructor, it is that you're teaching people from 3-year-old children right up to someone. I've taught somebody who for their 65th birthday got a riding lesson in a Christmas present. So that was the first time they'd ever sat on their horse. But then on the sort of coaching side, which is slightly different, the coach tends to coach competition people. And then it's more individual teaching. And then your teaching is at a higher level and you have to keep your teaching skills up to that level. And the delivery of that is, it's almost less instructing and more just that bit needs to be better. It's almost less talking, but you're the eye to the person that's riding on the ground. A stable manager. Now, more and more in Scotland, there is becoming the competition centres. So rather than the riding schools, they're opening competition centres, and the stable manager would really be the person that's in charge of the horsey part of it. They have stables, and most of the competition horses have state horses on site, but the majority of their customers are people who go and compete at that centre. There's a big multi-million-pound centre going up in Aberdeen at the moment, who is a big restaurant. They have a retail outlet. They have 2 surfaces that they are out, a big indoor arena, outdoor surfaces, cross-country fences. And that person must manage all of the horse part of it and have the financial awareness of what everything costs and how much the arenas, they can hire an arena out that's making them money and costing everything, and the price of livery for keeping horses at these centres, and the whole buying of feed, which is very expensive now. The feed prices have gone up, straw have come up, gone up, and hay has gone a bit through the roof. And they've got to have that understanding of what the costings to run the centre is. So their management background must be very good, and managing staff, because obviously as the manager they will have staff to manage. And you find that because it's an event centre, they have to run events that people, the equine industry, are demanding at the moment. So whether it's British show jumping or bringing in, international trainers to teach at their centre, to run arena events, but they've got to have their sort of finger on the pulse of what people require at the moment. Then we could go on to the blacksmith. Now, to be a blacksmith, as the last speaker had said, he wanted to go to Oakridge and be a blacksmith and whatever. You must have that basic understanding of horses and know how to work with horses. And we feel that, with the good grounding that they have, doing the NC equine, for instance, it starts you off on that, understanding the conformation, the basic handling of horses, how to manage a difficult horse. And then obviously they would go on to somewhere and learn the actual blacksmith skills. But before they can do that, they must have the sort of horsey understanding. More and more people for now are, where it's a sole trader, owner of a livery yard, riding school. We find in smaller areas and with diversification, farmers now are going on to, renting out sheds or loose boxes. They're converting them into stables and providing livery. And that farmer would be very good with stock, but might not be hands-on with horses and anything equine. And quite often the farmer will employ someone that has a qualification in equine to be able to run that livery yard. Or we've had farmers come on to courses that they have an understanding of working with horses, so that when they're employing people, they can go in there and help them and see what they can do to do it and have an understanding of the horses and the types of feed that the horses use, etc. So you'll see that there's mounted police, you know, there's the horsey au pair. Now that's another big area for someone who, a working parent, who have children, who have horses. They may have horses of their own. We have put on, students that we've had have gone on, and that is a very common job at the moment, with the parents working and you're employed to look after the children, but also look after the horses and take the ponies for the kids and get them going during the day and the holidays and take them to little shows and things. And that's become a very common job around Scotland at the moment. But we'll draw it to, but there are hundreds of jobs or different kinds of equestrian employment out there. And there is a big market for jobs. I was on a page the other day, there were 250 jobs, horsey jobs in stables looking for staff. And if you have a passion for horses, which that's the one thing you must have, is a passion for horses, and horses become your life, then there's all these jobs out there for them. And we can facilitate the learning to help you get on with a job that you've always wanted to do. So, are there any questions that you would like to ask?
Thank you so much for that, Diane and James. We've opened up questions there, so if anybody has any questions at all about equine, the career pathways into equine, any apprenticeships or any of the different roles, feel free to post now. I'll leave that open for a wee minute. So can both of you just tell us briefly, like a little summary as to what your day-to-day looks like then when you're at UHI? So you talked about training the teachers, you talked about obviously working, like horses are your life and you have your own horses. So what does your job look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my job is a funny job, because I come in the, well, I'll give you today, for instance. This is a bit of an odd day today. So at 6:30 this morning, we got a phone call saying that we have an owner that has horses with us. Their new lorry was arriving at our stables, where the college are, at 8 o'clock, and the guy needs to be on a train to get back to the south of England at 8:30 from Thurso. And so we were down here and got delivery of the lorry. I have no idea how anything works on it, and it would cost more than anybody's house, this lorry. So then at 9 o'clock the students arrive. We have mucked out, I've mucked out some. So 2 of us have mucked out some of the horses. The students come in, they do their mucking out. They have a quick break, change their clothes, and then we ride. So I taught from 10:30 to 12, and today was a jumping day, so the students jumped. The students that are doing the sort of lesser riding route, they stand with me and we look at the jumping and we measure the distances of the course. Then we have lunch, then we come back. Then this afternoon we were going on about reflecting on what they did this morning, because they have to write an essay on their reflection of how they're riding, and discussed that. And then went and did a bit of a practical thing on lunging. And then we all go and finish horses, feed horses. And then I made the excuse, I have to come here, so everything else is getting done. And that's the end of our day.
My day is slightly different. I work between working from home, organising all the staff and where they're supposed to be in their timetables. I work in our main college campus in Thurso, and I come out to my favourite place out at the Rural Studies Centre. So I came out for this talk. I come out and see the students, yeah, so my job's very varied, as is James's job. So we just react to whatever situation we're given, I think.
It's the best job ever.
Yeah,
It's the best job ever.
Wow, so it really does sound like no 2 days are the same with you guys. So thank you so much. So I think everybody's got a little bit camera shy this evening, but that's not a problem. We'll make sure that your email address is in our follow-up email to everybody after the event. And if anyone's got any questions, they can contact you directly. But thank you so much for taking the time again to speak this afternoon. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so running slightly behind schedule, but we're going to try and pick it back up. We are now going to take a little bit of a break until 4:30, and then we will be joined by Rihanna Rees to talk a little bit about the aquaculture sector. So we're going to take a little 10-minute break, hopefully, and we will be back then. Hello and welcome back. So, kicking off the next section of our evening, we have the wonderful Rihanna Rees from Scottish Seaweed, who's going to be talking to us a little bit more about the aquaculture sector. So hello, Rihanna, and I will pass over to you now.
Hi, thanks so much. Right, let me share my presentation with you. You will see that. I'm going to assume that you can.
They should all be able to see it now, Rihanna. There you go.
All right, wonderful. So yeah, I thought I'd give you a little introduction to the Scottish Seaweed Industry Association, what the Scottish seaweed industry looks like, what aquaculture industry looks like in general. So a little bit about me. I know everyone's been coming in here giving their backgrounds into how they got to where they are. So I'll give you a little bit of a background into how I got to where I am now, because seaweed doesn't seem like the most obvious choice. Whirlwind journey to get me here. So I started, I did an undergraduate degree in business management, not really knowing what I was going to be working on or doing. And then I ended up going to Southeast Asia for a little while, and I was teaching in and early years education out there. And I started putting together coordinating education packages for basically international schools. And then after that, I decided that's not what I wanted to do, and that's not what I was passionate about at all. So I ended up moving to Sweden, where I did my master's in environmental history. And I actually went to the conference of parties, the UN COP, which I know was in Glasgow last year or the year before. But this one that I went to happened to be in Germany, where someone actually who worked in seaweed ended up pulling me aside and saying, you know, whatever you think is going to save the world, if there's anything that can save the world, it's seaweed. And he got really excited about how it's going to provide all these opportunities for cleaner water, for sustainable resources, for bioplastics, for biostimulants, fertilizers, food, and everything else. So that's why I got excited about seaweed in the first place. So I ended up doing my master's in seaweed. So my thesis title was called Seaweed is Sexy. And you can read it online if you want to. And then I also then moved back to the UK at that point, wanted to work with seaweed businesses. I did start working with seaweed businesses, and then I was invited to come and set up the Seaweed Academy at SAM. So I am the one who did that. Now I've moved into the Scottish Seaweed Industry Association. So, you know, when I was 18, 19, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I was about sort of 25, 26 that I started to actually get an idea of what I wanted to be involved in. So, and now this is me. I'm going to be the seaweed person probably for the foreseeable future. So what we're going to talk about in this, we'll talk about why aquaculture is a good option potentially, what the career opportunities are, what your entry pathways could look like. Obviously everyone looks different, which is why I think everyone's giving their examples here, what your skills are and what your relevant subjects that you could study if you did want to go into further education would be. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the same kinds of stuff that were covered earlier in a previous talk, but I think will complement each other quite well, so I wouldn't worry too much. So why is aquaculture important at this time? Well, we are seeing definitely a shift in aquaculture. The industry is growing and there's potential for growth, although in some areas it's definitely decreasing in growth. So we're seeing areas like seaweed, like circular economies, blue economies, things like that, they are expanding. Offshore wind is expanding, whereas in areas like the fishery sector potentially that's definitely decreasing. We see that there's obviously a very big part of all of this is sustainability. So the aquaculture sector does not require any sort of fresh water, any sort of fertilizer or pesticides. And as we're expanding by 2050, we're going to have 10 billion people in the world. We need aquaculture industry that is necessary for a sustainable future. There's also the potential for a lot of interchangeable skills. So as you go from one job to the other, there tends to be a lot of overlap between skills that are required. So if you have a boat skipper license or skills in fisheries management, they can usually transfer to other sectors quite easily, or within the aquaculture sector. So with each role you take on, you have the capabilities to improve your employability sector by sector. So lots of reasons to get into aquaculture in the first place. Yeah, so a few jobs you could take on. So I've given some examples here. I know a couple of them were mentioned earlier as well. So you've got things like boat skippers or operations managers. So people who tend to go out, you'll get your tickets, your licenses, and be able to operate vessels. You also have aquaculture managers or consultants. They're people who'll be managing either people or maybe working in labs potentially. Consultants, again, as we sort of mentioned earlier, they could be people who have worked in academia before and know a lot, or people who have a lot of experience in the industry. So again, that's one of those things, the more roles you take on, the more you know, and the more you're able to do sort of consultancy and stuff like that. There's lots of people working in tech who are getting into the aquaculture sector. So loads of examples about satellite data and using satellite data to advise on site selection or monitoring as well. And you could, again, be a research scientist in this. So if you've taken a more academic route, going into research science is quite easy. Fisheries health as well, so nursery management, and that could be seaweed, that could be shellfish, that could be oysters, that could be lumpfish or other sorts of fish that require assistance and care. So that's nursery, hatchery, and fisheries management in all levels of the value chain there. Again, bivalves, so bivalves are your oysters, your mussels, any sorts of shellfish really, and you could again go into farming with that. There's also integrated farming, and then seaweed entrepreneurs, and I wrote entrepreneur there instead of specifically farmer because you could be working in the value chain. You could be trying to extract elements of seaweed out. So that's where you get your plastics from. You extract the alginate out of the seaweed, and then you can make a bioplastic, which is obviously gaining a lot of interest right now as we're basically banning single-use plastics. So seaweed is now being recognized as a non-plastic alternative. It's coming off, there we are. So seaweed in general is gaining attention, and it can be used in all sorts of different applications. So I've given a couple of examples here of things that it is used in and things that it has been used in. So I've got first example there is shore crisps. You might have seen these around. They're mostly quinoa crisps with a bit of seaweed in them. You've got extracts like iodine extracts that are used for their nutritional purposes. So we've got Weed and Wonderful, a seaweed tea there. And there's a few examples of seaweed teas or iodine extracts. We've actually got a flour down there. So that's a sea flour that has been made from seaweed. And, you know, at the moment, one of the big issues with the war in Ukraine is that Ukraine is one of the biggest resources for flour. So being able to have alternatives in those instances is really, really important. At the bottom there, you can see an example of the bioplastic. So that's a company called Notpla, who won the Earthshot Prize last year. So they've got alternative plastic packaging for the kind of plastic lined card boxes that you see there. Also for shampoos and conditioners. So instead of having a plastic wrapping, they use seaweed and it dissolves. Same thing there with the oils as well. And then they're also now working with Just Eat to make basically plastic-free packaging that's used for ketchup sachets, so you don't have to throw it away and feel bad about it. Then you'll have something that biodegrades and composts quite easily. You've got seaweed in crackers there. We've got tuna-free fish flakes, and it's again used as an alternative protein now. It's just straight up seaweed. A lot of people still do enjoy eating straight seaweed, and not many. It's not that common outside of Asia, but it is gaining attention for being a really sustainable and a really nutritional food source. And then the final example there is t-shirts. So there's actually t-shirts now being made from a sea cell manufacturing, and they mix it with wood pulp. So it's really, really good as a source. That's why I got into it, and I think every single day more things are being developed. The latest ones I saw were tampons being made out of seaweed, so it is really interesting space to be in. Some of the entry pathways are, again, I know as mentioned earlier, a little bit of voluntary work there. So I think that's really key to this. Any sort of voluntary work that you can get, internships to get practical experience are really important. Even if you're studying, you can usually do internships as part of your studies. There are apprenticeships to get hands-on skills. So if you do want to work in vessels, again, that's an really easy way to get through there. So UHI Argyle, for example, do boat courses, and this is becoming more and more common. Then there are also higher education options. So again, some degrees, which I'll go into in a bit. So some of the skills that are required to work in the aquaculture sector, I think a lot of these are quite broad across any sort of work sector. So communication skills, teamwork, people are going to be looking to know that you can interact with people, that you have good people skills. Problem solving is a big one in the aquaculture sector. A lot of people coming into the sector in the first place do lack these sort of problem solving skills. So how to be critical, how to look at things, how to make quick decisions, and it's really important, and it's not something that you can really be taught. It's something that you get from experience. You do work with a diverse group of people. I know that, you know, on day to day, I could be talking to, you know, fisher folk from Kinloch Burvey who aren't very happy about talking to me, to talking to investors, and it's a really, really eclectic group of people, and it's a wonderful place to be, but every single person is different. There's always going to be project management involved in these sorts of things as well. You'll potentially be writing for grant applications, funding opportunities. So being familiar with how to manage projects, how to apply for grants, these are all really good soft skills to have. And then your technical knowledge as well in the individual sectors could also be really valuable. So some of the relevant subjects that you could be studying for, I've got some examples here. The very first one, and probably the top one that anyone will tell you if you do want to work in the aquaculture sector, is marine biology. So they'd be looking at things like animal welfare, ocean systems, how the dynamic systems affect one another biologically. So you've got anything, you know, going from your low trophic species like seaweed, like mussels and shellfish, all the way up to your fish and marine mammals. Then you've got ecology, which I know was mentioned earlier a couple of times. So that's understanding the effect and the interaction of these ocean systems, and how every single species has an impact on the environment and what that means for the entire system as a whole. Zoology is another one that's looking specifically at your animal biology. Biochemistry is also a really interesting one. So that's understanding physiochemical processes. If you're particularly, I know a lot of people kind of go into this and go, well, to be doing something like that, you need to be really, really smart. You need to be a scientist. I know a lot of scientists, and I don't want to hear them say this, but they're not all that smart. You can actually get quite far ahead with these, and they're all relatively intricate processes, sure, but they come with experience and being trained in those specific channels. So if you're put off by the idea of getting into science because you think that you need to be really, really intelligent, I would say that you don't. It's a case of experience. Specific courses as well, there are some running. You've got ACES programs at SAMS, you've got algae biotech courses, and there's quite a few masters in sustainable aquaculture. So a lot of the time you can do a bachelor's in something else and then move into your specialty for the masters, especially in terms of sustainable aquaculture and channels like that. So there's a few different routes there. A couple of other resources that I just thought I'd highlight, and some of these are things that I'm involved with as well. So SAKE is a great resource for aquaculture. So it's the Sustainable Aquaculture Innovation Centre. They are operating at the moment, although it looks like they might change next year as their funding hasn't been continued, but we hope to see something else operating in its place. You've got various marine labs, Plymouth Marine Lab, you've got the Scottish Association for Marine Science here in Oban. Plymouth and Exeter University are great for their marine programs. there's a youth aquaculture society at the moment, which is going to try and encourage young people in aquaculture to network, to gain knowledge and skills, and I'm actually on the advisory board for that, so that'll be starting up probably next year, and I think we're going to launch it at Aquaculture UK. And then there's also Women in Scottish Aquaculture, which I'm also on the advisory board for, so encouraging women to get into aquaculture. It does tend to be quite a male dominated area. Lots of men kind of go into it thinking, you know, my dad did fishing, my granddad did fishing, and it's got a bit of a rugged outlook, but more women are now getting into it. Oh, there we are. There we are. Thank you very much. I hope that answered some of your questions in aquaculture, especially around seaweed, but also in around the channels and directions that you could take. If you do want to reach out to me, there's my email address, and yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for that. That was incredibly interesting, especially hearing as well about how the sustainability aspect of it, making clothes, for example, and t-shirts. I think it was really interesting, something I definitely didn't know. So I think a lot of people have taken a lot of information about that away. I think one of the questions they were asked during the break was actually about somebody who works with additional needs, and they're keen, you know, to get people into all of these different sectors. And they're often Christmas leavers, so they're looking potentially for any of these skills that could be applicable to any of these young people, and what the kind of career pathway would be for them. If they're only of the ages of 15 but turning 16, so the apprenticeship route, I guess, and kind of the work experience and placement aspect. So could you talk a little bit about that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's more and more internships. I think as this industry kind of goes forward, there is internships in marketing, you know, looking at how to market some of these. I think especially in seaweed, where seaweed is so new, and you're trying to get that information and that education out there to people about what actually it could provide. I'm sure, yeah, I was going to say, at least I hope that at least one of the uses for seaweed that we talked about today isn't something you've heard about before. But there's also, I mean, especially in terms of winter, the busiest time for seaweed, for example, is winter. Everything gets deployed in October time, and then it gets harvested in the spring. So there are these very short windows where you need people for a short period of time. So you know, that's a 2-week window for deployment and a 2-week window for harvest. So if you just make yourself aware to some of these companies as well that you just need this work experience, and you know, I'll be available for those 2 weeks that you'll need people, that'll be really important.
That's fantastic, thank you. So hopefully then we can also get your email address out to everybody with our follow-up email at the end of this. And if anybody's got any questions about getting into the industry, they'll be able to direct those questions in your direction, hopefully. Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that tonight. We really, really appreciate that, Rihanna. Yeah, we've definitely learned lots of different facts about seaweed and the kind of sustainability aspect of that. So thank you very, very much for that.
No problem.
Okay, so presenting next, we are going to have Amber Crowley from UHI. She's going to be talking to us about horticulture. So hopefully Amber's going to pop up on our screen now and be able to tell us a little bit about horticulture and the career pathways into this sector.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I'll just put my slideshow up and make sure that we can see that. So if I do that, how's that? Can you see that?
Yeah, we can all see that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yes, absolutely. Just as Rebecca said, I'm going to talk to you today about career pathways in horticulture, how to get into it, and some of the sorts of different aspects of the industry that are maybe slightly lesser known. I do have a bit of a cold and a cough, so please excuse me if I have a bit of a cough and a splutter in the background here and there. So my name's Amber Crowley. I work for UHI, Argyll, and I'm a curriculum lead there. So I line manage lecturers in horticulture and other land-based subjects, in the sea-based subjects as well, so aquaculture and maritime, and in social sciences. But my career has really been in horticulture, and I lecture in horticulture. So a little bit of background on me and my career and how I've come to the point that I am now in horticulture. My family have a wholesale propagation plant nursery. That's a picture of it there in the middle, on the west coast of Scotland, in Argyll, just south of Oban. So I've kind of been grown up in horticulture through and through. I then went and studied a biology degree, but then decided I wanted to do something a little bit more creative. So I did a HND in garden design. I then worked in garden design and landscaping and had a company in Edinburgh. We ended up doing public and private gardens all through the UK and some in Europe also. And there's a couple of examples of gardens around there. And I was lucky enough to have show gardens at the Chelsea Flower Show and at Gardening Scotland for a few years there. There's also a picture of a bottle of gin at the top there, not just because I like gin, although I do, but I also work as a horticultural consultant. So I advise horticultural businesses on any aspect of their business, really, on growing, on selling, and Lassa Gin, which is a small gin producer on the Isle of Jura, asked me to come in and mentor their business so that I could help them to grow the botanicals that they need on Jura to flavour their gin. So they have over 20 botanicals and they want to be completely sustainable and self-sufficient in everything that they can grow there, but it's a very challenging growing environment. So there's lots of different aspects of horticulture, and I've been very lucky through my life to work in a few areas. People often think horticulture is just gardening, isn't it? And we hear that opinion very often from kids in school, from the public. And is it true? That's the question. Is horticulture gardening? And I think the answer is yes and no. There is a sector of horticulture which really is gardening, and it's absolutely fabulous. It's a wonderful section of the industry. And that could be garden maintenance, like at the top there, where people are working to maintain gardens, to create and maintain gardens. And that might be public parks, public or private gardens, botanic gardens, estates. It requires people who are gardeners, through and through, pure gardeners. It also requires people who can supply plants, people who can supply materials, people who can manage teams of people. We have also in here landscaping, which is a form of gardening, certainly, where creating gardens, public and private gardens, streetscapes. Again, landscapers are required, gardeners are required, managers are required. But then we have all of the other sides of it going alongside that, the machinery side of it, equipment side of it. Excuse me. And then we have garden design, which is also a form of gardening. And that's obviously an area that I know quite a lot about, but it's designing public and private gardens. It crosses over into landscape architecture sometimes, but garden design also involves a lot of detail with planting design. So those are the sort of more gardening sides of it, but the industry is much bigger than that. And I'm having a look at this list, not completely in the order that I wrote it in. I'm going to go to the second one now, to production horticulture. And this is a big area of the industry, and it is the production of ornamental plants, which might be hardy ornamental nursery stock, herbaceous perennials, bedding plants, all of the sorts of plants that you see in the garden centres. But also we have the production of fruit, vegetables, mushrooms, and cut flowers. All of that is under production horticulture. So it's going on all across the country, indoors in glass houses and in polytunnels, and outdoors as well, depending what people are growing. And it's quite a big industry. We then have arboriculture, and arboriculture sits partly in forestry and partly in horticulture. People come into it from both sides, or sometimes just go straight into arboriculture. It involves tree surgery, surveying, woodland management. And so sometimes people come into that from their planting knowledge, or sometimes people come into it from their forester knowledge, So that sits a kind of as an industry that crosses over. We have large retail and sales and industry in horticulture, all the garden centres, plant outlets. And they need sales assistants, they need management, they need sales reps, they need horticultural equipment, they need people to sell consumables. So there's a big supply side as well as the garden centre side of people actually selling the plants in retail. There's also quite a lot of online retail going on these days, more and more. Lots of nurseries are branching out, excuse the pun, branching out into retail, online retail. And that's something that can be done without a big investment into a garden centre space, but straight from the growing space. We then have therapeutic horticulture. And this is an area that's rapidly growing and involves several horticultural charities that are really quite big, who are supporting people to deliver horticultural therapy or therapeutic horticulture. And the thinking is more and more that most people in the world could benefit from some therapeutic horticulture. Some people for real specific reasons, like recovery from injury or illness, through additional support needs, through disability, through rehabilitation of some kind. But also everybody benefits from going outside, working with plants, spending time in green spaces. The therapeutic horticulture is used for community projects, for the care services, for hospitals, for schools. So it's quite a big area of the industry, and it's really growing. Even these days, doctors will actually prescribe some time in green space or some therapeutic horticulture for people for physiotherapy, for example, or for people with mental health problems. Spending time in green space, productive time growing plants can be really helpful. There's education, so schools, colleges, universities, trainers and assessors, all delivering horticulture at all sorts of different levels, into primary schools, secondary schools, through the colleges and universities, but also in the workplace, delivering training and assessing to people who are doing apprenticeships. So there's quite a lot of job opportunities in horticultural education. And many horticultural educators do it alongside their other work. So I was part-time for a long time teaching while I was also a garden designer and working with my family business in production as well. So quite a lot of these areas of horticulture can be worked in simultaneously. Then another rapidly growing area of horticulture is environment and conservation. And horticulturalists are helping with growing plants and actually doing the activities of habitat restoration, conservation, visitor management in sensitive sites, for example. So several of our lecturers who teach horticulture, for example, on our courses are environmentalists, and they run projects like beaver reintroduction projects, and then they look at the impact of the beavers on the biodiversity and the plants in the areas that they manage. So they're horticulturalists also and environmentalists. And finally, at the bottom there, science and research. So there's a lot of crop science going on. Some of that sits within the agriculture space and some of it sits within the horticulture space. There's a lot of crossover, but sort of more purely within the horticulture area, there's a lot of plant physiology going on, research. There's plant trials. There's introduction of new varieties of ornamental plants, for example. There's genetic modification going on, a lot of sort of seed science. So it's quite a big area of horticulture as well. It's the sort of more pure science and research area. So it's very diverse. So what has horticulture done for us? Its benefits are very widespread, and there's just a few on here. Food security is becoming ever more important. We saw with some of the supply lines having troubles during Brexit that very quickly, within a few days of there being a supply line problem, we have no fruit and veg on our shelves. So horticulture within the UK or within any country really helps with the food security of that area. Locally grown produce being sold to local people really helps with food security. and councils and the government are looking much more into that and what we can do to grow food locally and use food locally. We produce medicines in horticulture, so we grow the plants and actually do quite a lot of the processing of the plant material to produce medicines. And not only the medicines that you might think that come from plants, that might be things like St. John's wort and things that are maybe recognisable when you would buy them in a pharmacy, but actually lots of other medicines that you would never even know were plant derived. So there's quite a lot of crop growing going on for medicines. And of course, the production of cannabis is a really strong growing area of horticulture also. Nutrition. So horticulture really benefits nutrition. Horticulture grows a lot of fruit and vegetables, lots of, particularly on the fruit side, but also on the salad crop side, sits within horticulture rather than the other vegetables that sit more within the agriculture realm. A lot of the horticultural crops are very vitamin rich, and so the nutrition quality of them is very high. So generally horticulture contributes to health also. Also therapeutic health, as I already discussed, and soil health, which is hiding in the bottom right hand corner there. Horticulture done well protects and regenerates our soils. At the top we have habitat restoration, improving biodiversity and carbon capture, which are all things that horticulture contributes to massively. And then all of these things together have economic benefit. So here's some other common opinions about horticulture: that it's low paid and it's for people who didn't do very well in school. And we see this still coming through in the schools quite a lot, that people think that maybe guidance teachers quite often think that, oh, you'd go into horticulture if you're not very academic, for example. So let's explore that for a few minutes. And I think the answer to it is yes and no. You can come into horticulture having not done very well in school, having not enjoyed school. Horticulture is for people who are maybe not so enthusiastic academically. There's lots of opportunities for entry-level good jobs, some of them not particularly well paid, but most of them with really good career progression possibilities. And so horticulture is an excellent choice for people who didn't necessarily really enjoy their school experience, didn't get particularly good grades. But that's not only who it's for. People come into horticulture at all of these levels and they progress on to lots of other levels. They also leave from all of these sorts of levels into employment. So we'll have a look at that. So we've got sort of levels 1 to 4, which is our more basic practical horticulture skills, with a little of the theory side, a little bit of horticultural science. And people who study at sort of levels 1 to 4, if they come into education in horticulture, can leave at that stage into a really wide range of entry-level positions, working as plant propagators, for example, garden centre assistants, gardeners doing maintenance. There's a lot of jobs for people with a quite basic level of education. And many people who go into that then are promoted because they gain their skills when they're at work. Lots of people decide to take on an apprenticeship from that point and improve their education that way, or literally just to learn on the job, and they gain their experience and end up managing or potentially owning some of these businesses. People who stay on in education or who come in with a slightly higher level of education from school might come into a level 5 or 6 course, which is a sort of more competent level of practical and a good mixture of theory in there, starting to learn a bit about plant physiology and photosynthesis, things like that. And people who come out at level 5 or 6 will have quite a high level of confidence and practical skills, and will be able to go in to an entry-level job in horticulture with quite little training. They'd be able to go in and take up a garden maintenance job, a job on a nursery, a job in a garden centre. They'd be able to identify the plants, carry out the tasks required for everything other than the most sort of specialised tasks. Then we go over into higher education, so moving up a little bit to HNC and HND level. And this is where people develop more specialist or more advanced practical skills, specialist pruning techniques, specialist propagation techniques like grafting and things, but also they start to build their scientific background if they're staying on an education at this level. So they're starting to develop their scientific theory, they're building up their scientific skills, their lab skills, in case they want to carry on to a higher level. Because if you do a degree in horticulture, then it is a science degree. Alongside those kind of skills, the practical side and the science side, they also learn about environment, about setting up community projects, about therapeutic horticulture, and they do business startup and management skills. So coming out of an HNC or an HND, somebody might expect to go into a sort of either higher skilled level horticulture job or a management job, maybe a head gardener of a smaller garden, something like that. Keeping going from there, you can do a degree or an honours degree, which is really where your scientific skills are advanced. And excuse me, you start to do your independent scientific research and you start to work on those skills. And then keeping going into masters and doctoral degrees. If people want to stick with the scientific pathway, they can go all the way through in horticulture. And certainly on our courses, we have one of our lecturers who's a doctor of plant physiology, who teaches our science side of it, for example, and who worked in plant breeding programs, breeding chrysanthemums for a long time. So there's a lot of possibility to keep going with education, but also to leave at any stage of education into a big range of jobs. So I think the answer is, to the previous question, you know, is it just for people who didn't do very well in school? No. But yes, it is for those people, but it's also for everybody else at all other levels. And so people might want to come into horticulture with a really good set of science hires, for example, and come straight into an HNC, HND and go through to do a horticultural science degree. So just a quick example of the sort of routes that you could do if you came to UHI, for example. So we have students studying in school with us at levels 4 and 5. We also have students studying in college with us at levels 4 and 5. And at the top route, they can go through up into higher education on the sort of academic side through their HNC and HND, and then they can go on to do degrees at other institutions. Or we also deliver apprenticeships. So we have people who are based at work and who are assessed on their competence at work by our assessors. So that is all from me. Very open to any questions that anybody has, and also very happy for people to contact me if they'd like to afterwards, if they have any questions about getting into a career in horticulture.
Thank you so much for that, Amber. That was really, really fascinating. I guess, I mean, I know for myself, I've been learning so much about horticulture in this job, but I guess my kind of immediate question to you is, obviously it's very clear that no 2 days are the same. What has been the best day for you in your career in horticulture? Because it seems that there's so many different elements to this. So what has been like your most memorable and favourite day so far in your entire career of horticulture?
I think my best day was when I was a student doing my HND garden design course, and I found out that I'd got into Chelsea Flower Show to do a show garden there. It was so exciting, and it pulled together so many of the different elements of things that I'd done before. We had a scientific aspect of it. We were producing the plants ourselves, so I was using those skills that I'd learned, and I was using my garden design skills for the first time in a public environment. So I think it was probably that day where I realized that all of these bits and pieces that I had done in my education and experience and jobs in horticulture pulled together to be able to show a design, you know, to such a wide audience. It was so very exciting.
That's amazing. Thank you. It does sound like obviously all that hard work finally paid off for you, and all those skills as they came together sounds like they actually made sense.
Yes.
Sometimes we can often question why we're learning all these things, but it definitely sounds like it all paid off. So thank you so much for your time tonight. That was fantastic. I think a lot of people found that very, very useful. Obviously, if you're happy, we'll be sharing your email afterwards in our follow-up email. So if anybody does have any questions, they can fire them off to you. So thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate that.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so for the remainder of the evening before we take our next break, we are going to have the wonderful Tracy McEwen is going to be speaking to us from Tarf Valley about agriculture and some of the career pathways into agriculture. So we're hoping to get Tracy on now.
Hi Rebecca, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We can't see you, Tracy, but we can hear you.
No, that's fine. Yes, I think you don't need to see me today. So you've got my slides, Rebecca. So yes. So we've been busy in the background, so I'll leave my camera off. Is that okay?
That's okay. That's not a problem. You just let us know when you want us to change the slide and we will.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide then, Rebecca. So my name's Tracy McEwen. I'm the service coordinator for Tarf Valley. So within my role, I oversee the pre-apprenticeship programme, coordinate short courses on farm, ATV, telehandler, tractor skills tests. So if you just keep entering it, Rebecca, I'll catch up. So I predominantly liaise with partners, including developing young workforce, Land Trust, SQA and SDS. So previous to working at TARF, I was an assessor, internal verifier and freelance trainer. So came to TARF 2019 and I oversee all of the above. So predominantly the roles that we promote, on to the next slide, Rebecca, on-farm roles are tractor person, dairy herd manager, milker, calf rearer, stock person. We are working with farmers at the minute to try and get more information on the variety of roles that's out there. So we're encouraging young people to go into the farm in these programmes. So on to the next slide, Rebecca. There are a variety of other roles that are on farm that students could go into, as in a vet, animal nutrition, agronomist, into milk recording, driving lorries, manufacturing worker, lab assistant scientists in your Galloway Creamery, Ribbon Glen, Arla, all these jobs are within there. So if we go on to the next slide, we're going to talk about what else we do. So we have an agriculture assessor who is now delivering a National Progression Award SCQF 5 curriculum within the timetable in our senior phase at school. So that's S4 to S6. We are asking kids to go onto 1 day a week work experience. And from that 1 day work experience, they're learning about all the job roles that you do in farm. However, they are supported with the assessor, guided through the standards set by the awarding body. They will have a mentor on place. And then on a specific time of the week, they'll have 2 periods of timetable for theory. So the theory is looking at the underpinning knowledge of the agri sector, the career job roles, and linking it all to the units within the National Progression Award. So we do short case videos of students within farms that you can see on our kind of YouTube channel. However, Tarf Valley also look at employability skills, so the soft skills that they need for the workplace, and that's like time management, are they attending, you know, how are they communicating in that workplace environment. And within that, we also have higher educational students who maybe have a gap within their timetable. They look at, for example, they would like to do nutrition, so they would go out onto farm, work with the dairy herd manager, research a wee bit of that, but actually they can use that reflection and qualification when they're doing their college or university application. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next slide now, and I hope it works, Rebecca, because I think you have a wee video. So we'll let you play the video and then I'll come back after the video stops. So that was a wee snapshot of some of the pupils out on their work experience and what they do and what areas they're in. So we'll move on now and have a chat about the pre-apprenticeship programme. So TARF manage a 26-week work paid experience. So we employ the individual and then place them on a mentor farm that they can travel safely to. I support them with weekly visits, looking at the employability skills side of things, and then they will have a mentor who works directly with them on a daily basis, going through tasks and activities that they'll do on farm. Again, I ensure that communication's there, they're not using their phone, different things like that, and we will tailor development plans to every individual. So for example, if you were on a sheep farm, we would give you ATV training because you would need the ATV training to go out and gather the sheep in, whereas on a dairy farm, you may want to do a short course as in hoof trimming. So the plans for that individual are tailored for that individual to get the best out of that workplace and the training that's relevant to them. So again, Rebecca, we have another wee video that I'll let you play, and this is some of our pre-apprentices on placement. So that was 4 of our pre-apprentices actually doing their tractor training. So as you can see, it's not just about driving a tractor. The training that we give to these students, it's ensuring that they're safe within the placement. So they'll do 3-point linkage, PTO shaft, they'll learn to drive the tractor safely, and then they're set within obstacles that they have to pass. So all the training they're given before they actually get into placement, so we can ensure that they have a better work experience when they go into the farm. Following on for the progression of that pre-apprenticeship, 75% of TARF pre-apprentices will go into a modern apprentice in agriculture. So that's where they'll enter full-time employment, so they're still earning while they learn. We have to ensure they're following the Agricultural Wages Board. So predominantly modern apprentices will get a lot more than the £6.53 an hour, so we will work with the farmer on that. They will also do on-farm qualification, so that's an SQS, CQF level 5 or 6, where the assessor will visit on-farm, assess competence and deliver underpinning knowledge sessions and lectures. So they'll get support for visits from that assessor, and again, depending on what training they haven't done, they can then enhance more training throughout the modern apprentice, as we're trying to upskill all these young people with the underpinning knowledge, but obviously when they're on a farm, we're actually upskilling that farmer as well. So because they're learning how to work with a young person, what's the up-to-date legislation changes, etc., etc. And again, that has been very successful. So we have a wee video, one of the students that completed the pre-apprenticeship and is now in full-time employment. So I'll let you play that one, Rebecca.
The pre-apprenticeship, it's given me a lot of opportunities to do certain courses, and one that I'm going on is a foot trimming course, which will help me know more about it and to fix lameness in the cows, which is a big problem in some places. The favourite part of my job is probably driving the tractors and all the mechanical stuff, because that's where I'm most interested. I'm looking forward to going back to my school to promote the pre-apprenticeship programme, as that's the best way that I like learning, is a hands-on environment, learning as I go. because I didn't like school very much, and it's really helped me build my experience, and hopefully I can show this to other students from my school and try and encourage them to do something like what I've done. I must get on with spreading the slurry as time's pressing around here.
So that's what we do here at Tarf Valley, and if Rebecca moves on to the next slide, that will give you all my information. So I'm quite happy to share this information with anybody. My email address is up on the screen at the minute, and so is my mobile number, so I can take any questions or feel free to contact me direct. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Tracy. That was really, really interesting, especially really focusing in on that career pathway aspect. I think one of the questions we were asked earlier on, which would be really relevant to this, obviously with the apprenticeships, is what age do the apprenticeships actually start? Because some people are asking for school leavers when they're 15 turning 16. So can people get out for the risk assessment and the work aspect? Are people allowed to go out onto farms at the ages of 15 and 16 and get that key experience at that age?
If you look at it, you're not technically allowed to be employed till you're 16 on a farm, and that's regulated obviously with the health and safety. So in a lot of courses that we deliver for apprentices, the apprentice has to be 16 as well. So your ATV, telehandler, tractor, first aid, they must be 16 to go into that. So usually what we would do is we would work along with the school, and the school may put them out in some work experience. So they'll do maybe a one-day work experience through the school and apply for the pre-apprenticeship or modern apprenticeship. So when they're 16, they can then make that transition over safely into the apprenticeship.
That's perfect. So it does sound like there is a lot out there for those from the age of 16, and you don't have to wait until you are 18. It seems that there's a lot of opportunities. And if somebody was interested in one of these opportunities, like the pre-apprenticeship or the modern apprenticeship, if they got in contact with you, would you be able to help them find somewhere locally to set that up for them?
Yeah, as you know, Tarf Valley's a cooperative, and we've got 1,400 members. All these members actually own Tarf, so they have investments in it. So it's easy for us to find a placement for any individual, and we try and accommodate as close to where that person stays, because we do know that travel is an issue. One of the things is we rely on parents a wee bit much, or but we say never let that put you off, because going to a farm, you don't know what size of farm it will be. Even if it is 20 minutes away, I will work with that farmer. It may be there's another worker that will be passing your door anyway and can give you a lift in the morning. So, but we do try and get that young person as close as possible, and it's easy. We have way too many farmers looking for young people, so we need the young people to come forward now. So also, Rebecca, one of our positives is, we are a training provider, but we have a roll-on programme. So if that kid's 16 in February, we would get them onto an apprentice when they're 16 in February. We don't have to wait to the next summer, because, if we wait for 4 or 5 months down the line, we may lose that kid to another area. And we don't want to do that. We need to showcase the careers that are out there within agri. It's not just about going onto a farm and doing the dirty jobs. Lots of really interesting jobs out there for kids leaving school, 16, 17, 18, whatever.
That's perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Well, what we'll do is we'll include your information in our follow-up email, and I'm sure you'll have a flurry of inquiries, no doubt, about the apprenticeships out there, as it seems like there's, we keep banging on about no 2 days the same. So I think it's really interesting for people to understand that these opportunities are actually not that far away from them themselves. And obviously, as you said, you don't have to wait a particular time. As soon as you're 16, you can get straight out there and get in the field and get experience. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for inviting us, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break again now until 10 to 6. So we're going to join back here at 5:50, when we will be joined by Fraser Wilson from SRUC, who's going to be talking to us a little bit more about land-based engineering, what that encompasses, and some of the career pathways into that. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully you've managed to join us back there. We are now joined by Fraser Wilson from SRUC. He's going to be talking to us a little bit today about land-based engineering and the career pathways that are involved with that. So hopefully we can get Fraser up on our screen here and he'll be able to share his presentation with us.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Just bear with me till I get the screen shared. Should be
no worries. There we are, we can see that.
Superb. Okay, dokie. Then Rebecca, if you're happy, I can just crack on just now.
Absolutely, of course.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And yes, as Rebecca said, my name is Fraser Wilson. I'm the programme team leader for land-based engineering at SRUC Oakridge campus. And I'm just going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon, this evening, looking at the different careers that are on offer in the land-based engineering sector. So, land-based engineering, what is it? What do we cover? Well, land-based engineering is basically all the different types of machinery that we might find in used on the land to produce and maintain, produce crops and maintain the land. So we've got everything from tractors, combines, to domestic hedge cutters, from robotic lawnmowers to robotic feeders that we might see used in dairy farms, and robotic lawnmowers used in professional golf courses and professional turf care. We have machinery from forage harvesters and for silage and the likes, through to forges for forming and shaping metals and servicing the equine industry as well. So we go from large machinery such as tractors down to small handheld appliances like chainsaws as well. So a wide array of machines and equipment to cover all these different sectors. Moving on to the sectors that fall within land-based engineering, there are several, if you like. So the main ones fall under sort of 5 different categories. So we've got agriculture, anything looking at farm machinery, as I say, from some of the larger combines down to the smaller feeder wagons and what have you, on smaller farms. So huge variety of equipment and machinery used in the agricultural sector. We also cover the horticulture and production horticulture and domestic horticulture, so gardenings, domestic gardens, machinery that be used within these areas, and going into the more professional horticultural side as well. Within land-based engineering, we would look at fixed plant and equipment. So if you're considering a career looking after dairy equipment, then we would be the area that you would come to as well. So any of the robotics and equipment that's used for milking cows on a daily basis, we would be the area we would cover this as well. Along the same lines of horticulture and sort of home-based grass machinery, we also have the professional turf care and outdoor power equipment area as well. So this covers anything from go-karts up to lawnmowers that are used on golf courses for maintaining the turf, snow blowers, if you like, and outdoor power equipment, strimmers, that sort of thing, and chainsaws. Also within the land-based sector falls the commercial area of arboriculture and forestry, a real niche area but a growing sector within the land-based area at this current time. So these are the different sectors that we might that fall within land-based engineering, but I guess the question is, what jobs do they support? Well, there's a huge variation in jobs that people can enter the sector through. So the main areas tend to be a service engineer and a service technician. A service engineer would be a candidate who was looking to service and maintain the equipment that would be used in the sectors that we just looked at. And then we have a service technician who would be the next level up, who'd be looking at the diagnostics and repair of the machinery that are deployed in these sectors. So that's very much looking at a workshop-based profession and looking at, you know, working on with tools and equipment to maintain and repair the specialist equipment in the sector. But that's not the only entry point, if you like. It's not the only career you could choose to follow. Many candidates come through the courses and go on to be product specialists for perhaps a machinery manufacturer, perhaps John Deere, perhaps New Holland, perhaps Toro in the turf equipment, where they would specialise in this manufacturer's area of expertise and area of specialism when it comes to their machines. Another area could be that, you know, you'd be out demonstrating the use of these machines to potential customers and get them involved in machinery sales. Huge amount of jobs advertised and available in these areas as well. If there's repairs going on for machinery, then there obviously has to be a supply of parts. And again, this is another career path that many could follow, where they would be situated within a dealership or with a manufacturer and be a specialist in the sourcing and pushing out parts to either workshops or to customers. A more advanced career could be somebody who specialised in specialist product troubleshooting, where they were basically just going out and diagnosing specialist machinery for faults and helping out the service engineers and service technicians within the dealerships. These roles tend to be with the actual manufacturer themselves rather than the dealerships that would be based around the country. But again, an excellent career with lots of progression opportunities. It doesn't just stop with the manufacturers and the dealerships, so the opportunities to form a career in different areas, such as a farm mechanic or a golf course mechanic, where rather than being in a dealership, that you're actually with the end users and you're looking after machinery at the point where it's being used. Again, many candidates followed this route and perhaps have a dual role as a greenkeeper and a mechanic, or a farmer and a mechanic at the same time. Another role that's become particularly popular over the last sort of 3 or 4 years is candidates who have went down the engineering pathway have then went into operating the machinery, whether it's self-employed or as a contractor. The ability to service and maintain the equipment and then operate it as well gives them a real edge in a competitive market. We have a number of candidates who come into our sector and then perhaps progress into different areas, such as which is maybe not so much within the land-based, the 5 sectors we looked at. For instance, we've had candidates who have been with us and went through apprenticeships and then went on to be welder fabricators in different sort of sectors, whether it be shipbuilding out in the offshore oil industry or onshore energy production, such as servicing and maintaining wind turbines. We've also had candidates who have went on to work in energy generation stations, such as power plants, and looking at instrumentation and monitoring and maintaining the instrumentation within these areas. And of course, you know, the last option could be to progress and become a trainer or educator in this area as well. So with these job roles, where are we likely to see these job roles actually taking place? Again, there's a bit of variation depending on the path you take. many candidates may work in a business where they're in the workshop or in the parts department within their dealership and don't venture further than that. Others may be out on site and repairing machinery where it's been used on farms. On bottom image down there shows a forestry machine being repaired on site at where they're cutting the timber. So again, a wide variety of areas where these skills can be used to make sure that every day is slightly different. You could one day be in the workshop, second day and out on site. So it keeps a bit of variety within the job. We have had some candidates who go through the engineering pathway and then specialise in sort of more advanced technologies such as GPS and setting up equipment and tractors for gaining efficiency when they're out applying pesticides and what have you. Again, wide variety of sort of opportunities to move into in that area. With all these careers, the careers are supported by study, and at SRUC we offer a number of pathways to enter these different sectors. The most popular at this point in time would be the Modern Apprenticeship programme. There are 2 modern apprenticeship programs on offer, the level 5, which gives the service engineering modern apprenticeship, and then the technician engineer, which would be the SCQF level 6. The entry point would be the modern apprenticeship level 5, and after successful completion, the option to progress onto the SCQF level 6 would be there for candidates who wish to take that path. Another pathway that is available is through a manufactured sponsored diploma, whether this be with a Class UK, a Case New Holland, or the AGCO group, perhaps Kubota. These options are available for a sponsored pathway as well. If an apprenticeship isn't available, or the candidates would prefer a more full-time programme over a year, SRUC do offer full-time courses in land-based engineering, an introductory level at SCQF level 4, where candidates who perhaps haven't gained the qualification from school that they may have hoped for, or just perhaps haven't been engaged at school greatly, then the SCQF level 4 introduction programme gives them a good base to go in and learn the skills and understanding of the sector to then progress perhaps onto the modern apprenticeship programme or onto our national certificate in land-based engineering, which is an SCQF level 6. These courses are on offer at both our Barony and Oakridge campuses. Now, all being well and the technology working correctly, I'm hoping to show a little video of one of our candidates in the sector who won an award just last year over the whole of the UK, and why he thinks it's a good industry to work in. So let's hope that this is going to...
Fraser, can I just check your audio's connected before you play this?
I am going to just make sure that it is.
If you look up the top of the screen, you'll see your wee bar that talks about controlling and sharing screen. There's a wee computer icon. It might have a cross through it just now. If you click on it, it will then link your audio up, and it means we can hear your audio from the computer too.
So... Sorry, my computer is just going a little bit slow, so just bear with me. I think it may well be subtitled anyway.
That's okay, just so we could hear what they had to say.
So I think it is, but Rebecca, maybe you can give me a shout if it's not. My screen's not quite showing that.
That's okay, no worries.
Angus. I work for aquaculture.
Sorry, I'll try that again.
I'm Paul Thompson, I'm 21 and I live in Angus. I work for aquaculture as an agricultural engineer. I left school when I was 15. When I was still at school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but knew I liked mechanicking and also had an interest in farming. Found the apprenticeship and applied for it and never really looked back since. I did 4 years at college, a year at the depot beforehand, so I'm now a time-served mechanic. Learned a lot at college and a lot at the depot. You go from learning about engines to gearboxes, electrics, everything's different. Doing the modern apprenticeship would definitely have helped my career. There's stuff that you learn in it that you would never probably see or know if you didn't do it. When a new tractor goes out, we do a pre-delivery inspection or a PDI, basically checking everything on the tractor that we possibly can. It means there's no breakdowns. Technology is definitely a really big part of it. It's becoming, well, it's in every single machine now. I'm getting more and more and more laptops and sensors and electronic control parts. The combines are a lot of money, they're a few $100,000, but the training that you get on them makes it very understandable. The knowledge that you get given is quite a lot to back it up, so you feel comfortable going out and working on them. I enjoy it a lot. It's good going. Not many jobs that you can go to and there's something different every single day. Skills to do the job, be problem solving, be the big one. Working together as a team, that would also be another big one. Difference the job makes is farmers wouldn't be going if the tractors were broken down, so shortage in food or have an impact on the food industry. I really enjoy my job just for the fact of you never know what you're coming to. When you go out to a machine and it's broken down and you're able to fix it and it's back up running, it makes you feel really, really good. It feels like you've helped somebody out as well. If one of my friends was thinking about coming into this industry, I'd tell them to go for it, because if more people knew what this industry let you achieve and let you experience, then it'd be well worth it.
Okie dokie. So I think that rounds my presentation up, Rebecca. So if anybody did have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them if I can.
Thanks very much, Fraser. I think that was really interesting to see all the different kind of roles within land-based engineering and some of the career pathways into them. Just opened up questioning just now, so if anybody's got any questions, feel free to post them. We'll leave that open for a wee minute. So Fraser, just obviously for yourselves working at SRUC, so what does your role look like on a day-to-day basis working within that sector?
So for me, it's we on a daily basis we have contact with our students. We do 100% face-to-face delivery, so we don't have any online learning. We have the candidates into campus and we attempt to get them into the workshops on a daily basis, get them hands-on, fixing machines, and get them understand the machines, doing the learning and teaching in a hands-on environment as much as we can. So if I give an example of today, this morning I was teaching fourth-year students about power shift transmission systems that would be used in the tractors that we just seen from that Paul was working on. And then this afternoon we were looking at air conditioning systems that we would have in all sorts of machinery and sort of mobile vehicles, so cars, buses, that sort of thing. So yeah, a good variety. Tomorrow I am going to do a session on rebuilding diesel engines. So yeah, a bit of a variety during the week for us, which is quite good and keeps it interesting for me and the students.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for that, Fraser. As I said with the others, we'll add your details to our follow-up emails. So if anybody's got any inquiries, whether it's about apprenticeships or courses at SRUC or any of the skills needed for land-based engineering, we'll make sure we point you in their direction. So thank you very much for that, Fraser. It's much appreciated.
No
Next,
problem
we are going to
whatsoever.
be hearing from John O'Connor. Now, John is one of our new and shiny industry champions here at Lantra. He is very enthusiastic. So we are hoping to hear a little bit from him. I'm hoping he's going to pop up on the screen in just a second. Here we go. And John's going to tell us a little bit about game and wildlife and some of the career pathways and skills needed for that sector.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, John. If you've got your screen ready to share, just let us know when.
Yeah, no problem. Let's get that for you. Righto. Can you see? Have you seen my screen just yet? No.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Whenever
Fantastic.
you're ready.
Right, guys, fantastic. So yes, let me get myself sorted up here. Right at the start of it would probably help. So everyone, yes, thank you very much for for inviting me along to do this. My name's John O'Connor, and I'm just really happy to get an opportunity to speak to you guys and tell you all about game management and my journey into game management, and hopefully give you some inspiration and some reasons why you might decide to choose game management as a future career. I feel lucky and honoured every day to be working in protecting the Scottish countryside. It's all about investment in our future, and I really hope I can show also what a career in wildlife management is exciting, rewarding, and also extremely essential. It was these very reasons that led me to opening this door a relatively short time ago. I was on a different career path. I left school in S5, firmly convinced I was going to be joining the military. Unfortunately, that plan wasn't exactly bulletproof, and that took a bit of a sidestep, and I was convinced that I was going to travel the world and make cocktails for celebrities, which I did. So I was very, very lucky to get involved in the drinks industry. First started off working behind a bar, and then slowly progressed on to working for spirit brands. For example, Jägermeister, Bowmore whiskey. I would travel all over, meeting lots of different people, tasting lovely drinks, and talking about the brands. And you know, I really, really loved it. I thought it was a perfect job for me. There was always a little bit of a nitty-gritty kind of feeling in me that something was a bit missing. I wanted to join the military because I liked the outdoors. I wanted to be an outward bound instructor, and when I did speak to the careers officer at the time, it was either military or outward bound instructor. No one mentioned game management. When the COVID pandemic hit, I was working for a whiskey company at the time, and I was actually furloughed for 4 months. At that point, I kind of sat there twiddling my thumbs. I didn't quite know what to do. The whole industry shut down, and I started to have a bit of a moral breakdown as my wife scrambled to learn how to teach English on a virtual platform to ensure that her classroom kept going and her pupils' education was maintained. Again, the business that I was involved in just stopped. It was then that I realised I needed to follow a bit more of a passion and find something, you know, pursue a career that I felt was valuable, was essential. And with game management, I've definitely found that. So the catalyst for making the change was not only the pandemic, but it was my wife actually provided me a Christmas present, as I was always very, very keen about the outdoors and about going hunting. My wife gave me a present to go stalking at their Gyle estate. I came back from that, one of the hardest days I think I've had. I was hiking up hills. There's snow on the hills, blue skies, very little clouds. It was absolutely idyllic. However, there was a lot of wind. There was dragging beasts up and down hills, and a lot of information to take in. But when I got home, as I said, I just wanted to do it all over again. And at that point, I knew that that's what I was going to do. I remember speaking to the gamekeeper at the time, and I asked him, "Can you do this full time?" He says, "This is what I do." And that night I got home, I booked an industry qualification called the Deer Stalking Certificate Level 1. and I enrolled to start in college 4 months later at the University of Highlands and Islands to do a national certificate in gamekeeping. There is no right way to get into this industry. You know, I think a lot of people kind of expect that you need to know someone that's actually in the industry to get involved with it. And to a certain extent, that's true if you want to do this as a hobby. However, there's a lot of people in this industry that are willing to teach, and they're willing to find loyal participants to get involved. And if you show a little bit of interest, these guys will take you in and will show you what you need to know. As you can imagine, where I grew up, it was very, very different to the Duke of Argyll's estate. He has quite a large property area, around 70,000 acres in the estate that I was working, and it was a head gamekeeper and myself, and we would manage the deer for a couple of years as I went through my college. So a couple of things that I would do on a day-to-day basis is I'd be managing the hillside, managing the land, looking at deer populations. I would take on board everything that Tom, the head gamekeeper, told me, who'd been there for 25 years, so he knew that ground perfectly well. He knew the behaviour of the deer, what the weather would do to the deer, and so absorbing that was it was tough, because you're not only trying to learn, but you're also trying to perform when you're on the top of a hill and you're climbing and you're walking, so it can be quite tough. Obviously you can see the views, absolutely fantastic. Working with such a large estate, there's quite a large number of deer to manage, so the commercial larder often looks like that on a day-to-day basis. So we follow best practice and legislation. You'll see all these animals are all tagged, and these are all being looked at, inspected and ticked off by a trained hunter, which I was able to collect when I done my deer stalking certificate level 1. I then moved on from my NC gamekeeping, and I continued to go with my HNC gamekeeping and wildlife management at UHI. This allowed me to progress quite heavily into a bit more of the management aspect of it. Other side of things that I managed to pick up along the way is utilising Lantra's courses, likes of chainsawing and spraying. And if you're going to be involved in game management, it doesn't always necessarily mean you're just managing game. It's also about habitat management, creating habitat for deer, for other birds, other mammals that you might find on the estate. Completed my HNC, and I was quite lucky to pick up a few awards. As Rebecca mentioned, I picked up the industry game champion, game management industry champion award at the Albas this year, and I also picked up best HNC student in the department and also best overall student at University of Highlands and Islands. So I was very, very chuffed with that. And interestingly, I'll say just about the picture about wearing ties, working in sales and marketing. I was always told I need to kind of pick myself up, wear a tie, but it was never me. But ever since starting working in this industry, there's something about wearing a tie. I feel the respect towards the tradition, and also the respect towards the ground and the land and the stewardship that I'm taking over. This year I've actually created my own forestry and wildlife company, West Coast Wildlife and Forestry. We've planted over 100,000 trees. We've managed deer over hundreds of thousands of acres, and we're going from strength to strength. So what started off as a gamekeeping course, I now run and operate my own wildlife and forestry services company. So the many reasons why I think a young person would like to be involved in the game side. You know, I think it all starts off with a passion for wildlife. If you have a genuine love for wildlife and a desire to make a positive impact on their management and conservation, then a career in wildlife management allows you to combine the passion and your profession. Working in this field provides you an opportunity to work closely with different species, learn about their behaviour and contribute towards the sustainability. When you're working in particularly my sector, there's a lot of kit and equipment that are being used, ATVs, Argos, to manoeuvre around the hillside and to manoeuvre animals that you harvest throughout the hillside. The use of firearms, rifles and shotguns are also a day-to-day place. And then obviously we've got inside the larder, and the butchering and processing is another side. When you do your game meat hygiene certificate with your deer stalking certificates, you learn all about game hygiene and best practice, which is very, very important when you will eventually be putting in venison into the human food chain. So other aspects that might interest a young person is which got me was the conservation and the environmental stewardship. Wildlife management professionals play a crucial role in conserving and protecting ecosystems by managing habitats, monitoring wildlife populations and implementing conservation programs. You can actively contribute to the preservation of biodiversity and the overall health of our natural environment. This is something that particularly drives me, knowing I'll one day pass on the stewardship and knowledge is very, very important. So again, with the career opportunities, wildlife management industry offers much more than just game management and gamekeeping, operating for pheasants or partridges. You can work for government agencies or non-profit organisations and research institutions, and also private consulting firms. You can have job roles which would be wildlife biologist, ecologist, conservation officer, park ranger or environmental educator. This diversity allows you to explore different facets of wildlife management and find a specialisation that aligns with your interests and skills. Fieldwork, if you like being outside, you're going to get enough of that working in this industry for sure. If you enjoy spending the time, you prefer a career that allows you to work in those types of settings, then wildlife management can be an excellent choice. Fieldwork is a significant component of many roles in this industry, providing opportunities for hands-on experience, data collection, monitoring wildlife and their natural habitats. Another big aspect for me is what you can do for the what can you do? What kind of impact can you have on a global scale? So wildlife conservation isn't just a local or national issue; it's a global issue. And with increasing threats to wildlife populations and their habitats, there's a growing need for skilled professionals who can address these challenges. By choosing a career in wildlife management, you can make a significant contribution to global efforts, protect endangered species, restore ecosystems, and combat issues like climate change and habitat loss. So the next slide I'm going to put on is a little video. It's part of a longer video, but I hope you kind of grasp a little bit about what I do and the area that I do it. So I hope you enjoy this for the next 2 minutes. See how you get on.
John, we're not hearing your audio at the moment. If you're able to just scroll to the top of your page and click on that little box above where it says controlling and sharing, and it's got that little computer function again. If you can just press that so that we can hear your audio, that'd be great.
There we go. Apologies, guys. Practice that and everything, so we did.
So you planted all of these trees? Yeah. All the way over there? All the way up there?
All the way up there, aye.
What's it you've got to go do the hole? Yeah, how do you make the hole?
Get out of here. So this here is a 49,000 tree plantation. It was felled about 2 years ago. The ground was left and it was our job to come in and plant 49,000 trees. About 11 to 12,000 of them were tubed and staked. That outside of plantation or outside fence, then that's Sitka spruce and Douglas fir on there on the top one, and then we've got native broadleaf direct planted behind here. So what I'm doing here is plantation. I work silviculture, the planting. We're also doing the fertilising, the spraying for weevil and vole control, and also we do the deer management and pest control. So that predominantly is roe deer and red deer on this plantation. Well, basically, a roe deer gives birth to twins every year, pretty much. So if you've got 3 roe deer one year, the next year you've got, what's that, 9, and then after that you've got 24,
Yeah.
and after that. So they just exponentially increase, and each one of them can damage £1,000 worth of trees in a year. So if you've got 50 deer doing £1,000 worth of damage, that's £50,000 worth of damage in year 1. In year 2, you've now got 300 deer, each doing £1,000 worth of damage, and it just incrementally increases. Year 1, 50 grand damage, year 2, 150, and so basically our job is to get it down to a balance so that we've got minimal damage, plus we can serve the herd and make sure that they're not under pressure, because what also happens is that if they increase their population, then what happens is they're pressed and pushed to go find food elsewhere, which is generally either plantations or crops that belong to farmers. Pressing that, you'll start finding them in your garden eating flowers, so that's when you start to know that the ground's pressured, so we need to manage it so that people don't have any issues, no car crashes. There's so many elements to it, and what we're providing, plus obviously we get some cracking venison out the back of it. You got me back, guys. So that was just a little kind of idea of what it is that I do on a day-to-day basis. So when I talked about picking up for deer damage, not only are you there to manage deer, but you're there to inspect the ground and understand what it is that the deer are actually doing to that ground. So for example, some of the images you see in front of us, 2 being damaged by a deer and 1 by hare. The top right image, deer damage, you can tell that by the particular shape that the twig's been snapped. Also with hare damage, you can tell it's a nice clean cut at the top, and if you look just down below it, you can see where the hare's just nipped the top off the tree, which is going to kill that tree off, and they didn't even bother eating it. This is something that you also see roe deer doing. They'll start to spray up and down on the bark. That helps to clean the velvet off their antlers at a specific time of year, but what it does is it really damages the tree and effectively kills it off. So this is the type of damage that it is that I would be looking for. So key qualities for success in the industry: dedication and loyalty, huge. Early mornings and late nights, hard work. However, it's extremely rewarding, and nothing like getting home and taking your boots off. It's extremely rewarding in that aspect. Adaptability and quick learning. Being open to learning through hands-on is crucial. The ability to quickly absorb information, adapt to changing situations is essential. Mistakes can be costly and also time-consuming, especially in situations where seconds matter, like on the hill. Interpersonal skills. Effective communication and interpersonal skills are vital when collaborating with colleagues, guests and clients. Building strong relationships and working well with others is key aspects of success. Resilience and persistence. Not every day in the industry is a success, so you must possess some resilience to weather some setbacks, and a persistence to continue striving for that success. Learning from failures and applying those lessons to future endeavours is crucial. So to wrapping up here, work and passion combined. If you look up to the guys, you see a sparrowhawk after a vehicle collision. People call the gamekeepers, people call the wildlife managers, the forestry rangers. We have opportunities to get up and close with the likes of the sparrowhawk, or kind of being privileged to be part of the ringing golden eagle chicks. So the other aspects of deer management and conservation, of wildlife management, isn't just the management and control, but it's also the reporting and the data capture. Information technology is used daily nowadays to report on wildlife controlled areas of interest, to inform back to not only your local group, but obviously to national concerns. For example, Nature Scot, providing them cull numbers. Soil sampling, reloading ammunition cartridges. These are all things that I do. Not always reloading ammunition cartridges, but however, that's something that I take quite a lot of pride in. And also the use of thermal imaging. I was at a careers fair and we showcased the thermal imaging to the kids there, and they absolutely loved it. It was part of a process of explaining optics and equipment used within the process of deer management. One of the big things I have to say, collaboration and friendships in this industry. The people that you meet on the hill, you go through particular experiences with them, and your friendships are forged in something a bit different. So if you like to get to know people, you like to get to know people quite up close and personal, then this industry can be the place for you. That's Liam Perks. That's another guy I work with on my course. He actually works as a river gillie, which is working on a river, doing effectively what I do for deer, but doing it for salmon. So yeah, that's about me, guys. Happy to answer any and all questions if you have any.
Thank you so much for that, John. I think that was a really interesting kind of experience to learn so much more about what game and wildlife management kind of looks like on a day-to-day basis. I think it's something that's often got a lot of misconceptions around it, so it's nice to understand a bit more about the sustainability element of it as well. We do actually have a question here from Emily asking about what is the best thing about your job. So is there any part that was unexpected when you first started out, but is it something that you've actually really enjoyed doing overall?
As I mentioned there about the opportunity, in fact, I'll go as far as to say it's a bit of a privilege. It's about probability, about being in the right place at the right time, and if you're out there enough, you'll get opportunities to see and experience things like ringing golden eagle chicks, which, as you can imagine, they're quite large, and it's all a bit of a new experience. So I think the best thing I enjoy about the industry is the privilege that you have to experience things that not everyone will ever get to experience.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that, John. We really appreciate you taking the time this evening to come along and speak to us. And if anybody's interested in a bit more about your company or has got any questions for John, we'll be putting that information in our follow-up email and they can get in contact and find out a wee bit more. So thank you so much for your time tonight, John. We really appreciate that.
Cheers, Rebecca. Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Okay, so up next we have another one of our industry champions. We're very fortunate that we have so many fantastic people that help us out here at Lantra Scotland, and we have our industry champion Isla Campbell. She's going to come and speak to us tonight. She works for Scottish Woodlands and she'll be talking to us about trees and timber. So if she is ready, we can share her screen and she can talk to us a wee bit more about trees and timbers and the career pathways into that sector.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. If you're ready to share your screen, you just let us know when.
Indeed. I want to follow up after John. That was a very good presentation. I will do my best. Right, share my screen. Can you guys see the presentation just now?
Yes, we can see that presentation. Thank you very much, Isla.
I will just put slideshow. Okay. Not to know you're going to have that little box, but I'll try and move it around. Right, so hi everyone. Yeah, I'm going to be talking to you about trees and timber and my my thoughts and how I got into the industry. So getting into forestry. There we go. Yeah, so who am I and what do I do? So as I said, my name is Isla Campbell. And as Rebecca said, I work for Scottish Woodlands, which is a private forest management company. I work in our office in Dingwalls up in the north of Scotland in our north region, but we have regions across Scotland. We also have an office in Ireland and England and Wales. So I work for a national company. So yeah, a bit about me and my education. I did a BSc Honours degree in forest management, as you can see there, with arboriculture and urban forestry, which is a bit of a mouthful. And I studied that at the Scottish School of Forestry, which is UHI in Inverness. So yeah, and as you can see, my role as a forest manager at Scottish Woodlands, but I started on their graduate scheme as an assistant forest manager straight out of university. I then went on to complete their graduate scheme, become an assistant manager, and just in April this year, I became a full forest manager. So already had career progression, which is great. And just a bit of, aside from my day job, a bit of volunteering. So as Rebecca said as well, I'm a Lantern Industry Champion. So I won a Caris Award at the Lantern Learner of the Year Awards back in 2019. And I also won, I came runner-up in the higher education category because I was studying my degree at the time. So I came in that one. And just this year as well, I've got myself signed up to be a STEM ambassador. So hopefully soon I'll be getting hooked up with schools and people that would be interested in receiving presentations and more information about forestry. So yeah, that's me. So why choose trees and timber? I think it's really important to know why this could be a good industry for you. So I think for sort of starting off, my first foot in the door, I think as John said, it's not great, it's always the way, but I had a family member and friends that I knew that were in the industry already. So I had a bit of an in. I know it's very traditional with farming that, you know, your parents do it and then you do it, it's generational. So I think forestry has a similar element, but it's not always the case. And just in my case, it was. So yeah, so my dad is in the forestry sector as well, and so is my uncle. And so I had a bit of an insight early on, which I guess most people maybe don't, but it was just a whole world to me that I find very exciting and from a very young age. So that was a little bit of an in for me, but there's lots of other reasons why you should choose it and why it might be a good fit for you. So if you're somebody that likes the outdoors, maybe you live in the countryside or you enjoy visiting the countryside and you get enjoyment from being out and about and walking and those types of things, forestry can be a great industry for you. If you enjoy working with others and collaborating, that's another big one that is really great in the industry. You're going to come into, I think people think in forestry, oh, I'm going to work in forestry because I like trees and I maybe don't like people so much. But actually you end up working with a lot of people in the industry. So it's great if you're able to talk to people and interact well and all those sorts of things. So if you're somebody that naturally gets along and enjoys working and collaborating, this could be the industry for you. There's also an element where no 2 days are the same. It's a very recurring theme in the land-based sectors that people say why they like their job is because no 2 days are the same. I think it can be the way when you have a role where you're in the office but you're also out and about. It means that you can pick and choose and you can manage your time potentially, and you can just sort of yeah, it's always changing, and it keeps things interesting. So if you're somebody that thinks, oh, I couldn't manage sitting down at a desk 9 to 5 5 days a week, then this can be a great industry for you as well, and as is all the land-based sectors, I would say. So another one similar to liking the outdoors, if you've got a passion for nature, wildlife and the environment in general. I think people get the idea that forestry is just cutting down trees, which it's really not. Obviously it's a massive element of the forestry industry is harvesting and felling for timber. But you can't just cut a tree down. There's processes and there's law and there's procedures and there's people to ask permission from, and there's all these things that go on in the background before you can even cut a tree down. So, and that involves wildlife. It involves assessing your environment and caring for it. So I think people don't often think, but actually wildlife and nature and the wider environment play a massive role in forestry. And also it's an industry where you can contribute to the fight against climate change. We're planting trees, there's carbon storage, and we're constantly coming up with innovative ways and having to adapt our current machinery and procedures and things to make our industry more sustainable and contribute to climate. So it's a very interesting, innovative time to be in the industry. Okay, just to get, there we go, next slide. So in terms of pathways into forestry, there are lots of different options, which is also great, at all different levels. So I'll just start from the top of the list there. So rural skills is a subject you can study at school. Some schools offer it. I don't know how many or how many of them do, but it's something that is becoming, I think, more available. So something that you can study in school. I think it's from sort of 4th year upwards. So this could give somebody that's quite young and still in school the idea to kind of see the kind of broad, generalized kind of land-based sector with a bit of forestry in that. And that might be a really good first point and a good stepping stone to kind of see if forestry could be something for them. So that's the kind of first kind of like sort of entry level you can get as rural skills. Next would be sort of modern apprentices in trees and timber. And this would be really setting you up for a quite practical job. So for somebody like Forestry and Land Scotland, which is the government agency which manage and run all of the publicly owned forests in Scotland, they have a role as a craftsperson where you'd be doing quite practical jobs. You'd be on the chainsaws, you'd be doing path maintenance, planting, maintenance, those types of jobs. So the modern apprenticeship role in trees and timber is a really good way for that. So if you have qualifications from school and you really enjoy practical learning, that could definitely be a route in for you. Further education level 4 to 6, so that's sort of certificates in forestry. Again, they can be quite practically driven and set you up quite well for practical jobs within the industry. Again, this could be operating machinery, planting, maintenance, cutting down trees, those sorts of really vital jobs that we still have in the industry. On to the next one would be your higher education. Obviously, like the route that I took. So I left school at the end of 5th year with 4 hires. And decided to go to college. I decided that was a better use of my time than staying on till 6th year. And I had the qualifications and managed to get the results I needed. So I started at an HNC level. I actually studied countryside and environmental management at SRUC first before I went to the Scottish School of Forestry and started the degree programme there. So these are, again, courses which have natural progression. You can start in HNC and work your way up, or you could leave after 2 years and have a diploma. So it's really flexible, and if you get the grades from secondary school, it's a good place. It can be a good place to start if you see yourself looking to maybe be in a graduate scheme or in walking into kind of immediately into a more kind of professional role. So that's a good option as well. And yeah, so an HNC, HND, BScs and honours would definitely set you up for more of a supervisor's role or for a sort of management level. And those types of jobs. And then, as I say, like I was lucky enough as well, there's graduate development programs. If you studied forestry, you have a degree. Or even if you have a degree in a similar subject, it could be geography, it could be environmental science. Graduate development programs are open. There's an option for you. So we Scottish Woodlands, the company that I work for, has a graduate development program, and so does some of the other big players like Till Hill. So that can be a really great option to, if you've studied forestry or studied your way to that point, to get an entry point into the industry. And of course, volunteering opportunities. There are some good ways to get volunteering experience, whether you're studying or whether you're still at school. And these can just be a sort of any age, and are just really good experience to maybe back up your studies or be an entry point to your sort of first experience of the industry. So just a bit of an example of where some of these pathways are. So as I said, I studied at UHI Inverness at the Scottish School of Forestry, which is obviously a school set up and designed specifically to teach forestry. It's a great environment for that. There's also options at SRUC. Again, I said I studied there as well. So I did the countryside and environmental management course, which is not specifically forestry, but you do have an element of forestry in that course. And that's a great course as well if you were to complete that to be in a position for a graduate scheme as well. The modern apprenticeships are in partnership with Forestry and Land Scotland, obviously up here in Scotland. So that's what I say, that sets you up for a job as a craftsperson doing quite practical work and in the industry. And then myself, as I said, Scottish Woodlands and Till Hill would offer graduate development programmes, and then just some suggestions of good places to start if you were looking to volunteer to gain experience. Nature Scot, Trees for Life, National Trust for Scotland and RSPB. I myself did a bit of volunteering for the National Trust for Scotland, and then a much smaller charity based in Fort William called the Nevis Landscape Partnership. So it was more kind of ranger based experience. So these are some of the options for you if you're looking for a pathway into forestry. So what is the industry looking for? As in, are you the right person for the industry? Would you get a job? I think what's really vital in our industry is enthusiasm. So willingness to learn and grow. Yes, you can study something and you can get a degree in it and you can, get to your interview and get the job. And you've done all this learning, but actually I'd say you learn more when you get into the job. It's definitely, you're always going to be learning new things. You're always going to be experiencing new things. So it's that willingness to take all that on board, and that willingness to go, okay, actually I did study this, but maybe I don't know everything, because you're not going to know everything when you immediately start, or when you're immediately trying to get into an industry. So really willingness to learn and to grow, and enthusiasm is vital, because I think enthusiasm just really comes through as a love for the job and a passion. So alongside that would be motivation, and that's just to do a good job. I think you have to be quite motivated in the job. It's similar to, as John mentioned, you can do long days if you're in a role where you're out and about and you're on the ground, boots on the ground. It can be tiring. You do have early starts. Well, in my role as a forest manager, I have early starts. I have to go meet and engage with contractors who like to start work at 7 in the morning and work till 7 at night. I have to work around their schedules. It can be just as simple as sort of taking phone calls and those sorts of things. And there is an element of potentially depending what role you're in forestry, you really need to be motivated to do the job and to do it well. Because that really comes through, and especially if you're engaging with landowners or clients, if they own forest, you need to be willing to do a really good job for that. And I guess experience is a tricky one, because obviously you can't get into the industry. They say it's difficult to get into the industry without experience, but then how do you get experience if you're not in the industry? It's a bit of a backwards one. And how do you get experience? So I would just say that experience doesn't have to be specifically in forestry. Also, there's so many transferable skills you can learn from volunteering in various roles. So I would just say, if you get any job opportunities that come up, go for them. Any sort of volunteering things, seek them out, try them out, gain as many skills as possible as you can, to just really backs up any education or any learning you're going to do in that particular sector. So yeah, experience is an important one, but I understand it can be a bit tricky. But there's definitely ways to show your experience and to get it. So in terms of selecting school subjects, I think for if you're going to find your way into the forestry industry, these are actually subjects that I did in school. So I got my hires in biology, geography, English, and PE. So I think it just kind of shows you that and I think these are quite valuable subjects, but actually biology is really relevant in terms of sciences and those sorts of elements of forestry. Geography is just, you're learning so much about the land and the landscape. It's so helpful. English, because I guess as well, actually, depending what role you take in the sector, there can be a lot of writing, there's lots of emails, there's quite a lot of grammar and punctuation, and so in my role specifically, so English can be quite helpful. Maths, and I think another one is people think, oh, actually I don't need maths in forestry, it's just cutting down trees, and actually it's a really vital part of my role. I use it every day. I have a calculator, a big old school style calculator on my desk, and I use it every day. I'm always doing maths and sums and working things out. And I think PE, I wouldn't say it's not an essential subject, but I think if you're somebody that enjoys physical activity, enjoys keeping fit, and maybe enjoys being, it can be indoor sports, but outdoor sports in particular, forestry could be really good for you. And because there's an element of having physical fitness in some of the roles in forestry. So I would say that. Is forestry STEM? It definitely is. I think as well there's a tendency to think that it's not, but it really is. It is a STEM subject for sure. I think, every day I'm using these things. So in terms of science, I'm doing everything from forest science and how the forest grows and evolves, and vegetation and plant life, to soils and climate data. You're looking at rainfall, you're looking at temperatures, all these sorts of things, and ecology plays a massive role. You're looking at ecosystems, essentially, you're looking at everything. You're looking at such a big picture if you're looking at forestry. So science is a massive part of the industry. Technology as well. So computers and IT, phones, tablets, computers, again, used on the daily. We have apps that we use every day. And so technology is a massive part. Drones are becoming a really helpful tool for us in forestry to take aerial photography, and you can use them to survey for certain tree pests and diseases. Our sawmills, so we're obviously cutting down trees, these trees get sent off to sawmills to be processed. The sawmills have crazy technology. There's so many computers. It's like you're surrounded by screens, and there's trees going into the mill to be cut, and there's measurements and things. So there's lots and lots of technology used. There's weighing, there's measuring, all electronic. There's a lot of technology involved, and the haulage equipment as well. The lorries that are used to take timber to the mills and take them to the market. These lorries have cranes and so many operating and lifting equipment, and you can sit and load up the back of your lorry with logs with a virtual headset from the comfort of your driver's seat. Like, the technology's just gone like crazy in this industry. It's really, really innovative and really, really interesting. As engineering as well, like, we do all sorts of construction in forestry, which I think is also forgotten. We build roads because we have to access trees. We have to access them to cut them and take them out of the forest. We build bridges because we have to cross rivers and burns and all these things. There's so many structures and so much machinery as well. We're operating big harvesting machinery, as well as the lorries and all these sorts of things as well, and equipment. So engineering is a massive part, and as I mentioned as well, like maths, I'm doing maths every day. You're analysing data, you're collating and data and all these sorts of stuff. There's finances and budgets. I work in the private sector. Well, it's budgets in all sectors, but I work in the private sector where we have private landowners that own the woodland that we manage. So we have to present them with how we're gonna manage their forest and what that's gonna cost them. I do invoicing, all these sorts of things are really a vital part of my role. So not necessarily all jobs in forestry, but there'll be some element of maths and finances and stuff in roles. So yeah, that's that. And then why is trees and timber a great choice? Well, for me, I've done very well. I've found my right place. I've managed to achieve some really great things so far. That's me. Like, I'd written my dissertation. I was in the first class that ever did the BSc honours course at the college. So I was a bit of a guinea pig, but it was a great experience. So yeah, I wrote my 10,000 word dissertation. So that's me handing it in. My Lantra award. That's me next to my dad getting to graduate and join him in the industry that he's worked in and he loves so much. And then there's me completing my graduate scheme with our former managing director of Scottish Woodlands. So I've had some really big achievements in actually quite a small space of time, which I'm really proud of. And I think it just shows that the industry, if you're willing to work hard and put the hours in, the industry, it's really rewarding. You'll get a lot out of it. Just some examples of these are some of my sites from the last few years. There's just such a vast range of what I do in my job. Everything from, you see the top right there, like planting trees and the ground preparation to do that, to then 45 years later, that's that tree being cut down. That's the harvesting site there, all the logs and all the wood that's going to go to the markets and into the mills. And then obviously machinery. I think it was the bottom corner here. There's the harvester, brand new harvester at the Royal Highland Show. I think it was last year. It's a forwarder. So that's lifting the trees out from when they've been cut. So yeah, really interesting machinery. There's some road building as well, as you can see. It's a really big part. And just like wildlife in general, and just some absolutely stunning places you get to go and see. Absolutely beautiful. I think one in the middle there is probably one of my favorite views. It's really, really pretty. So yeah, that's some pictures there. Oh, I want to go to the next slide. Second. There we go. And just a bit of a kind of example as to the industry is really, really, really thriving at the moment and very innovative, and it just keeps growing. And I think it's such a current industry as well. There's so much going on that's relevant to everything going on kind of in the country at the moment. So I'm sort of saying, what kind of place is forestry in right now? Well, I think we're in a very good place. You can see we've got the females that are working on saws and are saying, we can do the job just as well. You've got haulage solutions, which are contributing to